The universe operates on principles we understand: physics, chemistry, the fundamental laws of cause and effect. But what happens when something defies every sensor, every theory, every rational explanation? The USS Enterprise D had encountered countless anomalies in its journey through the cosmos: temporal rifts, subspace inversions, entities that existed beyond conventional reality. Yet nothing prepared Captain Jean-Luc Picard for what materialized on the edge of the neutral zone on stardate 47821.3. "Captain, I'm reading a massive spatial distortion bearing 27 Mark IV, Lieutenant Worf announced from tactical, his Klingon features tightening with concern. "It's unlike anything in our database." Picard rose from his command chair, tugging his uniform into place, a habitual gesture when facing the unknown. On screen. The view screen shimmered, revealing a churning vortex of azure and violet energy, crackling with what appeared to be unstable wormhole signatures. The phenomenon pulsed like a living thing, expanding and contracting as if struggling to maintain cohesion. "Analysis, Mr. Data." The android's fingers moved across his console with inhuman precision. "The anomaly exhibits characteristics of both a wormhole and a subspace tear, Captain. However, its energy signature does not match any naturally occurring phenomenon. I am detecting what appears to be propulsion exhaust within the distortion." "A ship?" Commander Riker stepped forward, his beard barely concealing a frown. "In that maelstrom?" "Not just a ship, Commander." Data's golden eyes widened, as close to surprise as the android ever displayed. "A vessel of extraordinary mass. Approximately 12 kilometers in diameter. The wormhole appears to be collapsing around it." The bridge fell silent save for the ambient hum of systems. 12 kilometers. The Enterprise D measured barely 641 meters. Whatever was emerging from that dying wormhole dwarfed even a Borg cube. "Red alert," Picard commanded. "Shields up. Hail them on all frequencies." The klaxon's rhythmic pulse filled the bridge as tactical stations armed themselves. On screen, the wormhole convulsed one final time, then tore itself apart in a cascade of exotic particles. What emerged made several bridge officers gasp. The vessel was unlike anything in Starfleet's extensive database of alien architecture. Its hull, if it could be called that, resembled organic chitin more than conventional starship plating, all irregular angles and biomechanical protrusions. Sections glowed with bioluminescence, pulsing in patterns that suggested distress rather than aggression. Massive damage scarred its surface, hull breaches venting atmosphere, entire segments dark and lifeless, what might have been propulsion systems flickering weakly. "My God," Counselor Troy whispered, her empathic senses overwhelmed. "Captain, I'm sensing millions of minds. Fear. Desperation. They're terrified. Life signs?" Picard demanded. Data's console erupted with data. "Scanning now, sir. I am reading 1.8 million life forms aboard that vessel. The biosignatures are unlike any in our records: insectoid physiology, chitinous exoskeleton, decentralized nervous system. Captain, they appear to be in severe distress. Life support is failing across 70% of the ship." "Still no response to our hails," Worf reported, frustration evident in his tone. Picard made his decision in the heartbeat between crisis and catastrophe. "Mr. Worf, stand down weapons but maintain shields. Counselor, keep monitoring their emotional state. Data, work with engineering to determine if we can render assistance. Number 1, you're with me. We're going over there." Riker's eyebrows rose. "Captain, we don't know anything about these beings. Their intentions are irrelevant if they die before we can ask," Picard interrupted, his voice carrying the weight of command and compassion that defined his leadership. "They came through that wormhole damaged and afraid. First contact protocols are clear: we render aid to those in distress. Besides, I suspect if they wanted to harm us, a vessel that size could have already done so. 20 minutes later, Picard materialized in Transporter Room 3 alongside Riker, Worf, Data, and Dr. Beverly Crusher. The security chief had insisted on bringing a tactical team, but Picard limited the party to essential personnel. First impressions mattered, and arriving with an armed battalion rarely inspired trust. Coordinates locked on what appears to be their command center, Chief O'Brien reported from the transporter console. "But Captain, I'm getting strange readings. Their technology is interfering with our pattern buffers. The transport might be rougher than usual." "Understood, Chief." "Energize." The familiar tingle of molecular dissolution washed over Picard, but O'Brien was right, something felt wrong. The transport took longer than normal, the materialization process stuttering as if their patterns were being filtered through some incompatible medium. When reality reformed, Picard found himself in a nightmare. The chamber was vast, easily 100 meters across, but it was the conditions that struck first. The air was thick, humid, carrying a smell of decay and machinery that made Crusher immediately activate her medical tricorder. Organic technology lined the walls. Pulsing, living systems integrated with what might have been circuitry or might have been neural tissue. It was impossible to tell where biology ended and engineering began. And everywhere, in the shadows and the sickly bioluminescent light, they moved. The beings were roughly humanoid in shape but utterly alien in execution. Their heads resembled some nightmarish fusion of insect and crustacean, with compound eyes that reflected the dim light, mandibles that clicked in patterns that might have been speech, and antennae that twitched with what could have been curiosity or fear. Their bodies were encased in chitinous exoskeletons, segmented and jointed, with multiple limbs that ended in appendages both delicate and powerful. They wore no clothing, their natural armor was covering enough. But some bore markings, scars, or technological augmentations that suggested individuality. Fascinating, Data observed with his characteristic objectivity. Their physiology suggests an evolutionary path dramatically different from most humanoid species. The exoskeleton appears to be composed of a biopolymer similar to chitin but significantly more durable. I am detecting neural clusters throughout their bodies rather than a single centralized brain. Worf's hand moved to his phaser, not drawing but ready. "Captain, there are hundreds of them. They're surrounding us." Indeed they were. The beings emerged from alcoves and passages, clicking and chittering in what was clearly communication. Some carried tools or technology. Others appeared wounded, their exoskeletons cracked, fluids leaking. All of them stared at the Enterprise crew with those unsettling compound eyes. One stepped forward from the crowd, taller than the others, with markings on its carapace that might have indicated rank or status. It clicked and gestured with complex movements of its multiple appendages, clearly attempting communication. "Universal Translator isn't processing their language," Riker noted, his hand also near his phaser. "Too alien." The being seemed to recognize the problem. It moved to a nearby console, organic technology that pulsed and shifted under its touch. And manipulated controls. A screen flickered to life, displaying images, a planet, blue and green. The same species, but living in cities, in something resembling civilization. Then the images darkened, ships descending, the beings forced into containment, treated like animals. The tall being turned back to them and spoke, its mandibles forming sounds that were almost recognizable. Help. We need help." The universal translator suddenly clicked into partial function, the device struggling to parse a language structure it had never encountered. "Home, cannot, go. Broken." The being gestured to the dying ship around them. "Trapped. Again, trapped." Crusher stepped forward, her medical instincts overriding caution. "Captain, we need to get medical teams over here immediately. I'm reading malnutrition, disease, injuries that have gone untreated for months, maybe years." The being focused on Crusher, its antennae moving in what might have been hope or desperation. It reached into a pouch-like structure on its thorax and withdrew a small device, offering it to her. "Doctor, don't," Worf began. But Crusher had already taken it. The device was smooth, organic, pulsing with faint light. Before anyone could stop her, she activated her tricorder to scan it. "My God. Captain, this is a medical database. Crude translation matrix, but I think I can interpret it. These beings, they call themselves," she struggled with the pronunciation. "The translation's incomplete. But they've been in space for 28 years. That mothership is their entire civilization. And Captain, they've been refugees that entire time. Fleeing from something. Or someone." Picard looked at the tall being, seeing past the alien features to the exhaustion, the desperation, the terrible weight of responsibility in those compound eyes. He'd seen that look before, in mirrors after Wolf 359, in the eyes of Bajoran refugees fleeing Cardassian occupation. "We'll help you," Picard said clearly, waiting for the translator to process his words. "I am Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the United Federation of Planets. You have my word, we will not abandon you." The being's antennae trembled. Around the chamber, the clicking intensified, communication rippling through the crowd. The translator caught fragments: promise, believe, trap. The tall being stepped closer to Picard, close enough that the captain could see his reflection in those alien eyes. When it spoke again, the translator managed a more complete rendering. "Christopher. Name, Christopher. We, learn your words. Before. From transmissions. We know, Federation. No, Starfleet." The being called Christopher paused, and something in its posture suggested profound weariness. "We know, promises. Humans make many promises. Humans break many promises." And in that moment, Picard understood. These beings hadn't just emerged from a wormhole. They'd emerged from hell. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Trek universe, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. Live long and prosper. The medical emergency unfolded with brutal efficiency. Within 2 hours, the Enterprise had established emergency triage centers aboard the alien vessel, which Christopher's people called the Mothership, a simple designation born from 28 years of having no other home. Dar. Crusher coordinated 12 medical teams across multiple decks, her professional composure cracking only when she witnessed conditions that belonged in history texts, not functional starships. Captain's log, supplemental, Picard recorded from what passed for the mothership's bridge, a cavernous chamber where organic technology grew in clusters around central nodes. "We have confirmed the presence of 1.8 million beings aboard this vessel. Their species designation remains unclear. Our universal translator struggles with their language, which combines verbal clicks, pheromone signals, and gestural components. They refer to themselves through a phrase that translates roughly as, the people, but Lieutenant Commander Data notes this may be a linguistic artifact rather than a proper name. For the purposes of this log, I will use the designation they've accepted from human cultural transmission. Prawns, though I suspect this term carries painful connotations I do not yet fully understand." Christopher led Picard through corridors that shifted between technological wonder and humanitarian crisis. The mothership's interior was a study in contradictions, advanced biotechnology that could shame Federation engineers, yet sections were hundreds of prawns huddled in spaces designed for dozens. Machinery that hummed with power, yet vast areas left dark and cold to conserve energy. It was the architecture of survival, not civilization. This ship, Christopher clicked, the translator now functioning at 70% efficiency, built for journey. Not for living. Not for 28 years. He gestured with multiple appendages at a chamber where juvenile prawns, smaller, with softer exoskeletons, clustered around what might have been a food distribution system. Children born here. No home. Only ship. Only running. Data scanned the walls with his tricorder, his positronic brain processing information faster than the device could display it. Remarkable. The ship's hull is a biocomposite material that's partially alive. It repairs itself, processes waste into usable resources, even generates oxygen through photosynthetic membranes. This technology is far beyond current Federation capabilities in biomechanical integration. Yet they're starving, Riker observed, watching as a prawn worker, smaller than Christopher, with duller coloring, received a meager ration of what looked like processed fungal matter. With all this technology, why? Christopher's antennae drooped. Ship designed for 50,000. For 5-year journey. Not 2 million. Not 30 years. We stretch everything. Make last. But, he clicked something the translator couldn't parse, but the emotion was clear: exhaustion. System failing. Slowly dying. We all slowly dying. They entered what Christopher called the command module, or what remained of it. The chamber had been magnificent once, a cathedral of living technology with neural interfaces and organic displays. Now it was a tomb. Massive structural damage had torn through the center of the space, exposing it to vacuum. Temporary force fields sealed the breach, but the destruction was total. Whatever had controlled this ship's propulsion, navigation, and higher functions was gone. Wormhole collapse did this, Christopher explained, his mandibles clicking in what Picard was beginning to recognize as distress. We try to go home. 28 years trying to go home. Finally find way, old technology, dangerous, but only chance. We activate it, wormhole opens, we enter. Then, he gestured at the devastation. Something wrong. Wormhole unstable. Collapse while we inside. Command module destroyed. Elders who knew how to fly ship, all dead. Their knowledge, gone. Data approached a surviving console, its bioluminescent surface flickering weakly. Captain, this technology operates on principles I have never encountered. The interface appears to be partially telepathic, requiring direct neural linkage with the ship's biological systems. Without the specialized knowledge base, repairing the propulsion system would be, he paused, calculating, extraordinarily difficult. Impossible, Christopher corrected. For my people, impossible. We workers. Soldiers. Builders. Not navigators. Not scientists. Those who knew, dead. Those who could teach, dead. We trapped. Again. The word "again" hung in the air like an accusation. Picard met Christopher's compound eyes. You said you've been refugees for 28 years. Fleeing from something. I think it's time you told us from what. Christopher was silent for a long moment. Around them, other prawns moved through their duties, repairing systems, distributing rations, tending to the wounded, all with the mechanical precision of beings who had done this for too long. Finally, Christopher gestured to a different console, one that still functioned. I show you. The display activated, projecting holographic images, crude by Federation standards, but effective. A planet appeared, lush and green, with cities that resembled vast hives but clearly showed signs of advanced civilization. Prawns moved through these cities freely, working, building, living. Homeworld. Name not translate. We call it origin. We live there. Build there. Not advanced like you, no warp drive, no space travel beyond system. But we have technology. Culture. Art. Christopher's voice carried something that might have been pride. We happy. The image shifted. Ships descended from orbit, sleek, predatory vessels that Picard didn't recognize. They deployed ground forces, and what followed made Counselor Troy, who had joined them, gasp and steady herself against a wall. Invasion, Christopher continued. Other humans. Not Federation. From Earth. They say they come in peace. They lie. They want our world for resources. Minerals, chemicals, things we use but they need. They promise partnership. They lie. They promise equality. They lie. The hologram showed prawns being herded into containment zones, forced to labor in mines and factories. The images were grainy, recorded by hidden devices, but the brutality was clear. Prawns beaten, separated from their young, treated as animals despite their obvious intelligence. They call us vermin, Christopher said, and the translator caught every nuance of bitterness. They call us insects. Prawns, word for bottom-feeding creature on Earth. They give us this name to make us less. To make us not people. Crusher had gone pale. Captain, this is reminiscent of humanity's darkest chapters. Colonization. Slavery. Apartheid. The hologram continued. It showed prawns planning, building in secret, somehow gaining access to one of the invasion force's shuttles and reverse engineering its technology. Years of this, workers toiling in darkness while pretending submission. And then, the mothership, constructed in orbit piece by piece, hidden behind planetary bodies, powered by technology stolen and adapted. We resist, Christopher said. We plan. We escape. 2 million of us, all we could save, leave origin in mothership. We go into space. Search for home. New home. Safe home. But you never found it, Picard said quietly. We never found it. 28 years wandering. We try many worlds. All occupied. All claimed. Or too hostile. Or reject us. Some see us and run. Some see us and attack. Federation worlds turn us away, too alien, too many, too much trouble. We become ghost ship. Wandering ship. Dying ship. Riker's jaw tightened. Christopher, are you saying Federation colonies refused you asylum? Not Federation proper. Outer colonies. Independent worlds. They see us and, Christopher made a clicking sound the translator labeled as bitter laughter. They see monsters. Not people. Never people. Troy spoke up, her voice thick with emotion. Captain, I need to report something. When I'm in proximity to these beings, I sense complex emotional structures, fear, yes, but also love, hope, grief, humor. They're fully sentient, fully sapient. There's no question. There was never any question, Counselor, Picard said firmly. He turned back to Christopher. These humans who invaded your world. What happened to them? Are they pursuing you? No. They have what they want, our world, our resources. We are escaped property. Not worth chasing. They think we die in space. Maybe they hope we die in space. Christopher's antennae moved in a pattern that suggested something darker. Better we die than prove them wrong. Better we disappear than return and tell story. Data had been studying the holographic records, his positronic brain processing details the others might miss. Captain, I am detecting temporal anomalies in these recordings. The invasion Christopher describes occurred approximately 30 years ago, but the technology depicted is inconsistent with Earth's known development during that period. The ships, the weapons, none match historical records. Because not from your Earth, Christopher explained. We learn this from transmissions we intercept. Your Earth, Federation Earth, different. Parallel. Alternate. We not understand fully. The humans who invade us, they from Earth, yes, but not Federation Earth. Your enterprise, your Starfleet, you speak of exploration, peace, diversity. The humans who enslave us speak only of profit, expansion, domination. Picard felt ice in his veins. An alternate Earth. Humanity down a different path, one without the hard lessons of the eugenics wars, without first contact with the Vulcans, without the ethical framework that led to the Federation. Humanity as conqueror rather than explorer. Christopher, Picard said carefully, you say you learned about us from transmissions. How long have you known about the Federation? 10 years. We intercept subspace signals. We learn your language, Federation standard. We study your culture. We dare to hope. Christopher moved closer, and Picard could see his reflection fracture across those compound eyes. We hope Federation different. We hope humans can be different. But we also learn to fear hope. Hope dangerous. Hope kills. In the silence that followed, alarms began to sound, not aggressive klaxons, but the softer tones of system failures cascading through the mothership's dying infrastructure. Data checked his tricorder. Captain, the ship's life support is degrading faster than projected. Without intervention, critical systems will fail within 72 hours. The Prawns have kept this vessel functioning through extraordinary ingenuity, but they've reached the limits of what's possible. Christopher looked at Picard with those alien eyes that somehow conveyed an all-too-human desperation. So I ask you, Captain Jean-Luc Picard of United Federation of Planets, are you different? Will Federation help? Or will you be like others, make promises, speak of ideals, then turn away when help is difficult? Before Picard could answer, Worf's comm badge chirped. Enterprise to away team. Captain, we have a situation. Long-range sensors have detected 2 vessels approaching at high warp. They'll be here in 30 minutes. Can you identify them? Riker asked. A pause. Then, sir. One is a Ferengi marauder. The other, another pause. The other is broadcasting Cardassian military transponder codes. Gul Dukat's flagship, the Grumall. Sir, they're both heading directly for the mothership's position. Picard and Riker exchanged a look of grim understanding. The Ferengi would see opportunity, technology to acquire, desperate beings to exploit. The Cardassians would see something else entirely, a massive ship full of beings who could be put to work, a potential slave labor force, or simply a threat to be eliminated near the Cardassian border. And the Prawns, after 28 years of running, had nowhere left to flee. Christopher, Picard said, making a decision that would define what came next, I need you to trust me. Not hope, I know hope is dangerous for your people. But trust. Can you do that? Christopher looked at him for a long moment, then at his people working desperately to keep their dying ship alive, then back at Picard. Do I have choice? Yes, Picard said firmly. You always have a choice. But I'm offering you something your people haven't had in nearly 3 decades, the protection of the United Federation of Planets. The question is whether you're willing to accept it, and all the complications that come with it. Christopher's mandibles moved in a pattern the translator couldn't decipher. Finally, he clicked a response, show me humans can be different. Show me Federation is real. I intend to, Picard said. Mr. Worf, signal the Enterprise. Red alert. Prepare for company. Number 1, get our people back to the ship. We're going to need to move fast. As the away team moved to leave, Christopher called out, Captain Picard. If you betray us, if you another liar, please make death quick. My people too tired for more suffering. Picard turned back, his voice carrying the weight of every principle the Federation was founded upon. Mr. Christopher, I give you my word, the word of a Starfleet officer. You and your people will not face death today. Not while the Enterprise has something to say about it. But even as he said it, Picard wondered if words, even true words, would be enough when Ferengi greed and Cardassian ambition arrived in 28 minutes. The Enterprise bridge hummed with controlled urgency as Picard strode from the turbolift, his command presence cutting through the tension like a blade. On the main view screen, the mothership drifted against the starfield, its bioluminescent wounds pulsing weakly, a dying leviathan that had somehow survived 3 decades of impossible odds. Status, Mr. Worf. The Ferengi vessel has dropped out of warp at the edge of sensor range. They are maintaining position, observing. The Cardassian ship will arrive in 6 minutes. Worf's fingers moved across tactical. Captain, I recommend we position ourselves between the mothership and any potential aggressors. Make it so. Counselor, I want you monitoring all subspace channels. The moment either vessel attempts communication, I want to know. Picard settled into his command chair, fingers steepled. Mr. Data, what are the odds the Ferengi and Cardassians arrived here by coincidence? Approximately 1,247 to 1 against, Captain. The mothership's emergence from the wormhole generated significant subspace distortion. Any vessel within 20 light-years conducting deep space scans would have detected the anomaly. Data turned from his station. Sir, I am also detecting 3 additional warp signatures approaching from different vectors. Lower warp speeds, likely independent vessels. Word is spreading. Like predators to wounded prey, Riker muttered from his position beside Picard. The Cardassian warship materialized on screen moments later, sleek, predatory, its hull the color of dried blood. The Grumall was a Keldon-class vessel, one of the Cardassian military's most formidable ships. Its weapons systems were already active, not targeting, but ready. Incoming transmission, Worf announced. It's Ghoul Dukat. On screen. The view screen shifted to show Ghoul Dukat in his command center, that perpetual half-smile playing across his features. The Cardassian officer was the embodiment of his species' peculiar blend of charm and menace, courteous in tone, ruthless in action. Captain Picard. How fortuitous to find you here. I was beginning to think Starfleet had forgotten about this sector entirely. Dukat's smile widened. Though I see you've discovered our new neighbors. Fascinating creatures, aren't they? We detected their arrival from Cardassian space. Quite the spectacle. Ghoul Dukat. I trust this is merely a survey mission on your part. The mothership and its inhabitants are under Federation protection. Are they? Dukat's eyebrow rose in exaggerated surprise. How remarkable. I was under the impression that granting protection required, at minimum, a formal request for asylum process through proper diplomatic channels. Has Starfleet begun extending its umbrella to any stray vessel that wanders past? Picard kept his expression neutral. Dukat was technically correct, the bureaucratic process for granting asylum could take weeks, even months. But Picard had no intention of allowing technicalities to dictate morality. The Federation extends humanitarian aid to any beings in distress, regardless of political status. These people. Dukat interrupted, his tone shifting to something darker. Captain, let's not be naive. I've had my science officer analyze the bio-readings from that vessel. Those creatures are insectoid drones. Quite possibly a hive intelligence with limited individual sentience. Calling them people is generous to the point of delusion. Your science officer is wrong, Crusher's voice came from her station at the rear of the bridge. I've conducted extensive medical scans. Each prawn demonstrates unique neural patterns, individual decision-making capability, and complex emotional responses. They're fully sentient by any Federation standard. The opinion of one doctor, based on cursory examination, Dukat countered smoothly. Captain, I propose a more pragmatic solution. The Cardassian Union has extensive experience managing labor forces. We could provide these creatures with structure, purpose, productive work. Certainly better than drifting in space aboard a dying ship. Worf growled low in his throat. You mean slavery? I mean mutually beneficial arrangement, Dukat corrected, his smile never wavering. They require resources, shelter, direction. We require workers for several mining operations in this sector. Everyone benefits. Except the prawns, Riker said coldly. Before Dukat could respond, a new voice cut across the comm channel, nasal, calculating, unmistakably Ferengi. Now, gentlemen. Let's not be hasty with our assumptions. The view screen split to show a Ferengi in gaudy clothing, his lobes trembling with barely contained greed. I am Daimon Tog, and I represent a consortium of investors very interested in establishing first contact with our chitinous friends. Unlike our Cardassian associates, we don't deal in coercion. We deal in opportunity. The Ferengi wish to purchase them, Worf said flatly. Purchase? Such crude terminology. Tog looked genuinely offended. We wish to offer employment contracts. Fair wages, reasonable working conditions, all negotiated through proper Ferengi commerce protocols. The 47th rule of acquisition is clear: never trust a man wearing a better suit than your own. Well, those prawns aren't wearing anything at all, which means we're starting from an excellent negotiating position. Picard felt a headache building behind his temples. Daimon Tog, Ghoul Dukat, I appreciate your interest. However, the prawns have expressed no desire to negotiate with either of you. They have requested Federation assistance, which we are prepared to provide. Have they? Dukat's expression turned calculating. And in exchange for this assistance, what does Starfleet expect? Access to their biotechnology? Exclusive rights to study their vessel? Surely the Federation doesn't extend such generosity without expecting something in return. The accusation hung in the air, and Picard realized with uncomfortable clarity that both Dukat and Tog, and anyone else monitoring these transmissions, would assume exactly that. The Federation's idealism was often seen as naivety or, worse, as cover for more subtle forms of exploitation. The Federation expects nothing except that these beings be treated with the dignity and respect afforded to all sentient species, Picard said firmly. Their ship is in distress. We are rendering aid. It's that simple. Nothing is ever that simple, Captain, Dukat replied. Especially when dealing with such a substantial population. 1.8 million beings require enormous resources, food, medical care, living space. Even with your vaunted replicator technology, supporting that many refugees would strain any world's infrastructure. Tell me, which Federation planet has volunteered to accept them? Which colony world is prepared to integrate 2 million insectoid aliens into their population? The silence from the Enterprise bridge was damning. Ah, Dukat continued, his smile returning. I see. You've promised them protection without actually having a plan for implementation. How very. Starfleet. Troy leaned forward from her station. Captain, I'm detecting a spike in subspace communications. The Ferengi vessel is broadcasting information about the prawns across multiple channels, commercial frequencies, trade networks, even some encrypted military bands. They're advertising them, Riker realized. Putting the word out to every interested party in the sector. Tog didn't even look embarrassed. The third rule of acquisition: never spend more for an acquisition than you have to. By letting potential competitors know about this opportunity, I drive up interest and, consequently, value. Basic market dynamics, Commander. Data swiveled his chair to face Picard. Captain, I am now detecting 7 additional vessels approaching this position. 3 are registered to independent mining operations. 2 appear to be unregistered, possibly smugglers or pirates. The remaining 2 are concerning. One is a Iridian information broker. The other is broadcasting transponder codes associated with Orion Syndicate operations. The situation was deteriorating by the minute. What had begun as a straightforward humanitarian crisis was becoming an interstellar bidding war, with the prawns as the prize. All vessels, this is Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the USS Enterprise. This area is under Federation jurisdiction. The mothership and its inhabitants are under our protection. Any attempt to approach without authorization will be considered hostile action. Strong words, Captain, Dukat observed. But realistically, what are you going to do? Fire on merchant vessels exercising their right to navigate open space. Declare martial law in a sector that technically falls within the Cardassian Federation treaty zone. Your hands are bound by your own regulations. Picard's combadge chirped. Crusher to bridge. Captain, you need to see something. I'm transmitting medical data to your ready room terminal. It's disturbing. Can it wait, Doctor? No, sir. It can't. Picard rose. Number 1, you have the bridge. Monitor all vessels. If anyone makes a move toward the mothership, I want to know immediately. He moved toward his ready room, feeling the weight of impossible choices settling on his shoulders. The ready room doors hissed shut behind him, providing a momentary cocoon of silence. Picard activated his desktop terminal, and Crusher's medical data flooded the screen. At first, it appeared to be standard biological scans, cellular structures, DNA analysis, metabolic functions. Then he saw what Crusher wanted him to see, and his blood ran cold. The prawns weren't just malnourished. They were dying. Not from disease or injury, but from something far more insidious, genetic degradation. Their DNA was breaking down at the molecular level, mutations accumulating with each generation. The data showed projections. 20 years, maybe 30, before genetic viability collapsed entirely. The prawns weren't just refugees fleeing persecution. They were a species circling extinction. Crusher's voice came through the calm, Captain, I think it's related to their biotechnology. The fluid they use, the same substance that powers their ship, it's mutagenic. Low-level exposure over extended periods causes cellular damage. In small doses, it's manageable. But they've been living in a ship saturated with this substance for 28 years. It's killing them slowly. The children born on that ship have it worst, exposed from conception. Can you treat it? Maybe. With time, research, advanced medical facilities. But Captain, we're talking about treating nearly 2 million individuals. It would require resources beyond what the Enterprise can provide. They need a world, a permanent settlement, access to Federation medical technology on a massive scale. And they need it soon. Within 5 years, the damage may become irreversible. Picard closed his eyes. The situation had just shifted from complicated to impossible. The prawns weren't simply asking for asylum. They needed nothing less than complete rehabilitation, medical, social, infrastructural. The cost would be staggering. And every vessel now surrounding the mothership was calculating that same cost, but in terms of profit rather than principle. A chime at his door. Come. Worf entered, his posture rigid with barely controlled anger. Captain, we have a new complication. The Cardassians are scanning the mothership with active sensors. Deep penetration scans. They're analyzing the biotechnology. Can we block them? We can try, but it would be interpreted as hostile action. Captain, Worf hesitated, unusual for the straightforward Klingon. I have studied the Cardassian occupation of Bajorans extensively. What Gul Dukat said about managing labor forces, he is not exaggerating. The Cardassians have infrastructure specifically designed to exploit large populations. They would put the prawns to work in dilithium mines, weapons factories, agricultural processing. The prawns would not survive long under such conditions, but the Cardassians would extract maximum productivity before the end. I won't allow that to happen. With respect, sir, how do you intend to prevent it? We cannot declare war on Cardassia over a refugee population we have not officially accepted. The Federation Council would never approve it. And even if we wanted to fight, we are one ship facing growing numbers. Picard looked out his window at the stars, at the mothership drifting helplessly, at the predators circling. Mr. Worf, do you know what I find most disturbing about this situation? Not the Cardassians' opportunism, that's expected. Not the Ferengis' mercantilism, that's their nature. What disturbs me is that they're both technically correct. We have no legal authority to protect the prawns. We have no plan for their resettlement. We have made promises we cannot yet keep. But we will keep them, Worf said with absolute certainty. Because we are Starfleet. Because it is right. Is that enough? Is righteousness sufficient when facing the practical realities of interstellar politics? Picard turned back to his security chief. The Cardassians will argue we're hypocrites, preaching idealism while offering no concrete solutions. The Ferengi will argue we're naive, expecting charity where commerce could provide actual outcomes. How do I counter those arguments when they contain kernels of truth? By being better than them, Worf said simply. By proving that Federation ideals are not just words but actions. Captain, you asked Christopher if he could trust you. Now you must trust the Federation to support your decision. A commotion erupted from the bridge, multiple voices, alarms. Picard and Worf rushed through the doors to find organized chaos. Report. Riker pointed at the view screen. Sir, one of the independent mining vessels ignored our warnings. They attempted to dock with the mothership. The prawns, he paused. The prawns defended themselves. The view screen showed the mining ship, a small vessel, perhaps 50 meters long, drifting with hull breaches along its port side. The damage was precise, surgical. Whatever weapon the prawns had used, it had disabled the ship without destroying it. Casualties? Picard demanded. None, according to their distress beacon. But Captain, look at this. Data brought up analysis of the weapon signature. The prawns used a directed energy weapon unlike anything in our database. It operates on principles that appear to violate several fundamental laws of physics as we understand them. The beam somehow destabilizes molecular bonds without generating heat or radiation. It simply disaggregates matter. They're bioweapons, Crusher said quietly. I saw references to them in the medical database Christopher gave me. Weapons that only prawns can operate, keyed to their unique physiology. Ducat's face reappeared on screen, his expression no longer amused. Well, Captain. It seems your helpless refugees are rather well armed. I wonder what else you've neglected to mention about our chitinous friends. Cardassian Defense Command will be very interested to learn about weapons technology that can bypass our shields. The situation had just escalated from humanitarian crisis to potential military incident. And Picard knew, with sinking certainty, that he had only minutes to prevent it from spiraling into something far worse. The Enterprise conference room had become a diplomatic battlefield. Picard sat at the head of the table, flanked by his senior staff, facing Christopher and 3 other prawns who had transported aboard. The aliens shifted uncomfortably in chairs designed for humanoid physiology, their chitinous bodies scraping against the furniture with sounds that set teeth on edge. You fired on a civilian vessel, Picard said, keeping his voice level but firm. Without warning. Without provocation beyond their attempt to dock. Christopher's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign Picard had learned indicated agitation. They attempt to board. Without permission. Without communication. In our experience, this means attack. We defend. We always defend. They were miners, Riker countered. Opportunistic, yes, but hardly a military threat. One of the other prawns, smaller than Christopher, with scarring across its carapace, chittered something that the universal translator rendered as, "You not know. You not live it. Every ship that approaches is threat until proven otherwise. We learn this. We learn this hard way." Crusher leaned forward, her medical instincts translating alien body language. You've been attacked before. Other ships, other species, claiming to want peaceful contact. 28 years, Christopher confirmed. Attacked 7 times by pirates. 11 times by slavers. Twice by military vessels who see us as threat. 5 times by explorers who want to study us like specimens. We learn, shoot first, apologize later. Apology better than death. Data's head tilted slightly. A logical survival strategy given your circumstances. However, it presents a significant diplomatic complication. Captain, if the prawns continue to respond with lethal force to unsolicited approaches, it will be difficult to argue they are victims requiring protection rather than aggressors requiring containment. We not aggressors, the scarred prawn chittered, rising from its chair with startling speed. We defend. Only defend. 28 years we run, we hide, we try to avoid conflict. But when cornered, when threatened, what choice we have? Let them take us. Let them experiment on us. Let them sell us. Please, Picard raised a hand, voice calm but authoritative. No one is questioning your right to self-defense. But you must understand how this appears to outside observers. A massive vessel with advanced weapons technology, refusing communication, firing on approaching ships. We not refuse communication. Christopher interrupted, a behavior Picard hadn't seen from him before. We try. Every time we try. We broadcast peaceful intent in 200 languages we learn. We signal non-aggression. We offer tribute, technology, service, anything to be left alone. And every time, they see us as things. As resources. As monsters. The room fell silent. Troy placed her hands flat on the table, her empathic senses clearly overwhelmed. Captain, I need to say something. The emotional trauma I'm sensing from these beings, it's profound. Clinical PTSD would be the closest human equivalent, but magnified across an entire population. They're not acting out of aggression. They're acting out of terror. Worf spoke up, his tone surprisingly gentle for a Klingon. I understand this fear. Klingon have long memories of persecution, of being judged by appearance rather than honor. But Christopher, you must also understand, fear makes poor decisions. Firing on that mining ship has given Ghoul Dukat exactly the justification he needs to claim you are dangerous. We are dangerous, the scarred prawn said flatly. This is truth. We have weapons. We have technology. We survived 28 years in space when all logic says we should be dead. We are dangerous because we refuse to die quietly. Christopher placed a limb on his companion's carapace, a calming gesture, perhaps. Captain Picard, I understand your position. You want to help. But help requires we be good victims. Quiet victims. Grateful victims who do not fight back. But we try that. On our homeworld, we try that. We submit. We cooperate. We believe promises. And it destroys us. I'm not asking you to be victims, Picard said carefully. I'm asking you to trust that the Federation is different. That not all humans are like those who enslaved your people. That not all species will exploit you. You say Federation different, Christopher replied. But Federation made of species. And species all the same, they see us, they fear us, they hate us. Already I see it on your ship. In the eyes of your crew when we transport aboard. They look at us like insects. Like vermin. That's not, Riker began, but Crusher cut him off. No, Will. He's right. She looked directly at Christopher. I've monitored the crew's reactions. Most are professional, but there's discomfort. Fear. Some disgust. It's not intentional, it's instinctive. You look alien in ways that trigger deep evolutionary responses in humans. The uncanny valley effect, amplified. Your honesty is appreciated, Doctor, Christopher said. At least you not lie. Lie's worse than hate. Hate is honest. Data interjected with characteristic directness. If I may, Christopher, you face what human sociologists call a perception paradox. Your appearance evokes negative instinctive reactions, yet your behavior is demonstrably intelligent and peaceful. When not under threat. This cognitive dissonance makes it difficult for individuals to reconcile what they see with what they know intellectually. It is, unfortunately, a significant obstacle to your integration into Federation society. You saying we too ugly to save, the scarred prawn translated bluntly. I am saying, Data continued, that your situation requires more than humanitarian impulses. It requires institutional commitment, cultural education, and time. Resources that Captain Picard cannot unilaterally command. Picard's combadge chirped. Bridge to Captain. Sir, you need to return immediately. The situation has escalated. On my way. Picard stood. Christopher, I need you and your people to return to the mothership and stand down all weapons. No matter what approaches, do not fire. Give me time to establish proper diplomatic protocols. And if they attack while we defenseless? Then the Enterprise will defend you. You have my word. Christopher studied him for a long moment. Your word. Human word. We bet our survival on human word before. It go badly. I know. And I can't undo what was done to your people. But I can offer you this, I will not abandon you. Not for politics. Not for convenience. Not because it's difficult. The Federation stands for something, for the principle that all sentient beings deserve dignity and freedom. If we fail to uphold that principle now, we prove ourselves no better than those who enslaved you. Fine words, Captain. Your Federation very good with words. Christopher rose, his full height impressive even hunched in the low-ceilinged room. We stand down weapons. We trust, for now. But if your words prove empty like all others, we will not blame you. We will simply be unsurprised. Disappointment requires hope, and we have little left. The prawns departed, leaving the senior staff alone. The moment the transporter took them, the professional masks cracked. He's right, isn't he? Crusher said quietly. About the crew. About the instinctive reactions. I watched Lieutenant Barclay nearly jump out of his skin when one of the prawns walked past him in sickbay. And he's one of our more empathetic officers. The question, Riker said, is whether we can overcome those reactions. Whether the Federation as a whole can. We must, Worf stated. Honor demands it. And practicality, if we turn away the prawns, we set precedent. What message does it send? That the Federation only helps beings that look acceptable? That our principles apply only to those who fit our aesthetic preferences? Picard moved toward the door. All valid points, which we will address. But first, let's see what new crisis awaits us on the bridge. The bridge was barely controlled chaos. Multiple viewscreen feeds showed the growing fleet surrounding the mothership, 14 vessels now, including 2 more Cardassian warships that had arrived to support Gul Dukat. The Ferengi had been joined by another marauder. And the unregistered vessels maintained a predatory orbit. Status, Picard commanded. It's a mess, sir, Lieutenant Commander LaForge reported from his engineering station. Gul Dukat has declared the mothership a navigational hazard and is demanding it be moved out of this sector. The Ferengi are broadcasting what they call employment opportunities directly to the prawns on multiple frequencies. And sir, we've detected several vessels attempting to jam our communications with the mothership. Who? Unknown. The jamming is sophisticated, routing through multiple relays. But Captain, there's something else. Geordi brought up a tactical display. I've been analyzing the mothership's power signature. It's fluctuating wildly. Life support is failing faster than Dr. Crusher predicted. I'd say they have 48 hours, maybe less, before critical systems collapse. Troy looked up from her station, face pale. Captain, I'm sensing something from the mothership. Not fear, resignation. They're preparing to die. They think we're just delaying the inevitable. They're probably right, a new voice said. Every head turned. Admiral Alina Nechayev materialized on the view screen, her expression carved from granite. The Admiral was known for her pragmatism, her political acumen, and her complete lack of tolerance for idealistic overreach. Admiral, Picard acknowledged, standing straighter. I was preparing to file a formal report. Save it, Captain. I've been monitoring the situation from Starfleet Command. I've also been fielding communications from the Cardassian ambassador, the Ferengi Trade Commission, and approximately 24 Federation Council members demanding to know why you've positioned a starship in defense of an alien vessel we have no treaty obligations toward. The Prawns are sentient beings in distress. The Prawns are a diplomatic nightmare, Nechayev interrupted. 2 million refugees with no homeworld, no formal government, no existing legal status under Federation law. Add to that advanced biotechnology that makes our weapons specialists salivate, genetic degradation that makes them a medical crisis, and an appearance that, frankly, is going to trigger xenophobic responses across half the Federation worlds. So we abandon them? Riker asked, not quite keeping the disgust from his voice. I didn't say that, Commander. I said they're a nightmare. There's a difference. Nechayev's expression softened slightly, a rare occurrence. Captain, I don't doubt your intentions. But good intentions don't conjure living space for 2 million beings. They don't create the medical infrastructure needed to treat species-wide genetic damage. They don't overcome the political reality that this is an election year in the Federation Council, and refugee crises are politically toxic. Are you ordering me to withdraw, Admiral? No. I'm warning you that if you continue down this path, you're going to face opposition from quarters you don't expect. The Federation is not monolithic, Captain. We have colonies that would riot at the thought of prawn refugees being settled nearby. We have medical facilities that are already overwhelmed with existing patients. We have resource allocation committees that will balk at the cost. Data spoke up. Admiral, if I may. The Prime Directive is clear about rendering aid to species in distress. The prawns qualify under any interpretation. The Prime Directive applies to natural disasters and technological failures, Commander. It doesn't obligate us to solve every humanitarian crisis in the galaxy. If it did, we'd need to resettle half the species in the quadrant. So where does that leave us? Picard asked. Nechayev was silent for a moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of political reality. You have 72 hours, Captain. That's how long I can hold off the Federation Council from making an official determination. In that time, you need to accomplish the impossible, find a world willing to accept the prawns, establish a medical treatment plan, and demonstrate that they pose no security threat to Federation interests. Fail any one of those, and the Council will be forced to take action. Action that will likely involve turning the prawns over to Cardassian, protective custody, as the least politically complicated option. That's unconscionable. That's politics, Captain. And like it or not, Starfleet operates within a political framework. You want to save these people? Then stop giving speeches about principles and start solving practical problems. Find them a home. Prove they can integrate. Give the Council a reason to say yes instead of reasons to say no. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in heavy silence. 72 hours, Riker said quietly. To find a planet, arrange resettlement, and overcome generations of trauma. That's impossible. No, Picard said, moving back to his command chair. It's merely highly improbable. Mr. Data, begin scanning for suitable worlds within 50 light-years. Uninhabited or sparsely populated, Class M environment, sufficient resources to support large-scale settlement. Mr. LaForge, work with Dr. Crusher on a preliminary medical treatment plan. Counselor, I need you to assess what psychological support the prawns will need. And Worf. Sir. Prepare a security analysis of the Prawns' weapons technology. If we're going to convince the Council they're not a threat, we need to understand exactly what they're capable of. Captain, Troy said hesitantly, even if we accomplish all that, there's still the larger problem. The Federation is built on the idea that all beings deserve dignity and freedom. But that idea is tested every time we encounter someone who doesn't fit our expectations. The Prawns don't just challenge our resources. They challenge our prejudices. How do we overcome that? Picard looked out at the view screen, at the mothership struggling to survive, at the predators circling, at the vast indifference of space. One mind at a time, Counselor. Starting with our own. He activated the ship-wide comm. This is the captain. By now, many of you have seen or heard about our visitors, the beings we call prawns. I know they appear strange. I know their appearance may trigger discomfort or even fear. But I want every member of this crew to understand something. These beings are not insects. They are not monsters. They are people. People who have survived unimaginable hardship. People who have maintained their culture, their dignity, their hope through nearly 3 decades of persecution and exile. He paused, choosing his words carefully. The Federation was founded on a simple principle: infinite diversity and infinite combinations. That's not just a platitude. It's a commitment, a promise that we judge beings by their character and actions, not by their appearance or origin. The Prawns are testing whether we truly believe that principle or whether it's just empty words we recite when it's convenient. I believe we are better than that. I believe this crew is better than that. So I'm asking each of you to look past instinct, past appearance, past fear. Look at beings who have fought for survival and won. Look at beings who refuse to give up hope even when hope was foolish. And ask yourselves, is this not exactly the kind of courage and resilience we claim to admire? The next 72 hours will determine not just the fate of the Prawns, but what kind of Federation we truly are. I trust each of you to meet that challenge. Picard out. The bridge was silent. Then Worf spoke, his voice carrying unusual emotion. Captain, I will prepare the security analysis. But I will also recommend that the Prawns be granted provisional Federation citizenship. Their warrior spirit, their refusal to surrender, these are qualities of honor. They deserve our respect, not our pity. Noted, Mr. Worf. Now, let's get to work. We have 72 hours to prove the Admiral wrong. But even as his crew moved to execute his orders, Picard couldn't shake a troubling thought. What if Nechayev wasn't wrong? What if the Federation's ideals, noble as they were, simply couldn't stretch far enough to encompass beings this alien, this challenging, this expensive to save? And if that was true, what did it say about the Federation itself? The Ferengi proposal arrived 18 hours later, transmitted on a secure channel that somehow bypassed Enterprise security protocols. Daimon Togg's face appeared on screens throughout the mothership simultaneously, an impressive feat of technological infiltration that made Geordi immediately launch an investigation. Greetings, esteemed Prawns. Togg's voice dripped with manufactured enthusiasm. I am Daimon Togg, and I represent a consortium of Ferengi investors who see not refugees, but opportunity. Not burden, but potential. Not problems, but solutions. Christopher stood in what passed for the mothership's communications center, surrounded by dozens of his people who had gathered to watch. The translator struggled with Togg's rapid-fire delivery and commercial jargon. We offer employment contracts, guaranteed for 10 years. To any prawn willing to join our mining operations in the Claris system. We provide housing, food, medical care, and generous compensation. 73% of your earnings go directly to you, with the remaining 27% covering operational costs. It's the fairest deal you'll find in this sector. One of the prawns chittered something skeptical. Christopher held up a limb for silence. But wait, there's more. Togg continued, clearly enjoying his pitch. We've analyzed your biotechnology. Fascinating stuff. We're prepared to offer premium rates for any prawns with engineering or technical skills. Your bioweapons. We'll pay extra for security positions. Your shipbuilding knowledge. Double compensation for design consultants. We're not just offering jobs, we're offering careers. The transmission included holographic projections of Ferengi mining facilities, clean dormitories, recreational areas, medical centers. It looked almost acceptable. Which was precisely what made Christopher suspicious. Of course, Tog added, his tone shifting to practiced sincerity, we understand you've faced exploitation before. So we're prepared to include oversight mechanisms. Independent arbitrators. Regular inspections. Even, if you insist, limited Federation observation. We want this to be a partnership, not a prison. The transmission ended with contact protocols and a deadline, respond within 24 hours. The gathered prawns erupted in clicking, chittering debate. The translator caught fragments, better than death, can we trust, children need, slaves with better cages. Christopher turned to find Picard standing at the chamber's entrance. The captain had transported over during the broadcast. He makes good offer, Christopher said quietly. Better than we expect from Ferengi. Too good, Picard replied, moving closer. Mr. LaForge traced the transmission source. It didn't just come from Tog's vessel, it was routed through the mothership's own communication arrays. The Ferengi have already penetrated your ship's systems. They wanted you to know they could. Demonstration of power. They say, we can protect you. We can violate you. Choose protection. Christopher's mandibles moved in what might have been a bitter smile. Subtle. For Ferengi. It's also a lie, Dr. Crusher added, stepping through behind Picard. I accessed Ferengi medical databases, legally, before you ask. Their medical care for non-Ferengi employees is minimal at best. And those dormitories? Designed for humanoid physiology, not your body structure. You'd be chronically uncomfortable, possibly injured, within months. But we'd be alive, another prawn said. Uncomfortable and alive better than comfortable and dead. Picard couldn't argue with that logic. Instead, he changed tactics. Christopher, I need you to see something. Will you come with me to the Enterprise? 20 minutes later, Christopher stood in the Enterprise's observation lounge, looking out at a holographic display Data had prepared. The android worked the controls, and a planet appeared, green and blue, with 2 small moons. Juret 4, Data explained. Federation colony established 40 years ago. Current population, 8,623. The colony was attacked by the Borg 3 years ago. 15% of the population was assimilated. The survivors have been struggling to rebuild ever since. Why you show me this? Christopher asked. Because, Picard said carefully, the colony's governor contacted us 6 hours ago. She's heard about your situation. She's offering sanctuary. Christopher's antennae went rigid. Why? What's she want? Data brought up more information. Juret 4 has extensive agricultural capacity but insufficient labor force since the Borg attack. They have residential structures that were never occupied, built for a population that never arrived due to the Borg crisis. They have medical facilities, schools, infrastructure. What they lack is people to utilize these resources. So we be their labor, Christopher said flatly. Different masters, same cage. No, Governor Amilyn Harkin's voice came through the comm system. Picard had arranged for her to join remotely. Her image appeared, a middle-aged human woman with premature gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. You'd be citizens. Full voting rights. Property ownership. Autonomy to maintain your culture and governance structures. We're not looking for servants. We're looking for neighbors. Why? Christopher demanded. Why you want us? You see us. You know what we look like. You know the fear we create. Harkin's expression hardened. Mr. Christopher, 3 years ago, I watched the Borg assimilate my husband and 2 of my children. I watched friends, neighbors, colleagues transformed into drones, stripped of everything that made them individuals and converted into components of a machine. The Borg are efficient, logical, and utterly inhuman despite wearing humanoid forms. Beauty is irrelevant. Appearance is irrelevant. What matters is whether beings retain their individuality, their capacity for choice, their dignity. She leaned closer to her screen. You fought for 28 years to maintain those things. Your people didn't surrender to despair. You didn't fragment into competing factions. You didn't abandon your values even when survival demanded it. That's not something I find monstrous. That's something I find admirable. The observation lounge was silent. Christopher's compound eyes reflected the holographic display of Jurat 4, a world that might become home. How many you accept? Christopher finally asked. All of you. 2 million. We have the space. With proper planning and Federation support, we have the resources. And when we arrive? When your people see us in streets, in their schools, in their homes? When their children have nightmares about insect monsters? What then? Harkin's smile was sad. Then we work through it. Together. I won't lie, there will be adjustment periods, conflicts, misunderstandings. Integration is never easy. But Mr. Christopher, we're already monsters here. Monsters with trauma. Monsters who wake up screaming. Monsters who see drones in every shadow. Maybe that makes us uniquely qualified to look past appearance and see beings rather than nightmares. Troy, who had been observing silently, spoke up. Governor, I appreciate your sincerity. But I have to ask. Have you consulted your population about this? Do they actually support accepting 2 million prawn refugees? I held a colony-wide vote yesterday. 63% in favor. 31% uncertain. 6% opposed. Given that we're talking about doubling our population with an insectoid species, I consider those numbers encouraging. 63%, Christopher repeated. Meaning 37% not want us. Meaning we settle on world where 1 in 3 people wish we not there. Yes, Harkin admitted. But it's 1 in 3 rather than 10 in 10. Progress is incremental, Mr. Christopher. Perfection is impossible. Picard studied Christopher's body language, the way his limbs moved, the patterns of his antennae, the subtle shifts in posture that indicated emotional state. The prawn was struggling, caught between hope and cynicism, between desperate need and hard-earned wariness. Christopher, Picard said gently, I know trust is difficult. I know every promise your people have received has been broken. But Governor Harkin is offering something real. Not charity. Not exploitation. Partnership. A chance to rebuild. And genetic damage? Christopher asked, turning to Crusher. You say we dying. This world fix that? Crusher nodded. Jurat 4 has a level 3 medical facility, not as advanced as Earth or Vulcan, but capable of handling genetic therapy. With Federation medical support and the research team I'm assembling, we can develop treatment protocols. It won't be immediate, but within 5 years, we should be able to reverse most of the damage. 5 years. You say should. Not will. Should. Christopher moved closer to the window, looking out at the real stars beyond the hologram. 5 years we trust. 5 years we hope. 5 years we vulnerable. And if it fail? If treatments not work? If colony decide we too much trouble? What then? Then we adapt, Picard said. As you've been adapting for 28 years. But this time, you won't be alone. The Federation will stand with you. Federation. Christopher turned back, and Picard was struck by how much exhaustion could be conveyed by alien features. Captain Picard, I ask you direct question. Answer with truth, not diplomacy. Do you believe Federation will truly support us? Or do you believe they abandon us when politically convenient? The question hung in the air. Everyone in the observation lounge understood its weight. This wasn't about refugee policy or humanitarian obligations. This was about whether the Federation's foundational principles were genuine or simply pretty lies told to maintain moral superiority. Picard could have offered reassurance. He could have cited Federation law, principles, historical precedent. Instead, he told the truth. I don't know, Christopher. I want to believe the Federation will honor its commitments. I want to believe our principles are stronger than political expedients. But Admiral Nechayev was correct. We're a political entity, subject to all the failures politics entails. There will be council members who oppose supporting you. There will be worlds that refuse to trade with Jurat 4 if they accept you. There will be setbacks, betrayals, disappointments. Christopher's mandibles clicked, surprise, perhaps, at such honesty. But, Picard continued, I also know this. The Federation has survived for over 2 centuries because enough people, at enough critical moments, chose principle over convenience. We're not perfect. We fail constantly. But we also keep trying. And right now, Governor Harkan and the people of Jurat 4 are trying. That's not nothing. Not nothing, Christopher agreed. But not everything either. He turned to the holographic display again, studying the green and blue world. I must consult with my people. This decision. Too important for one individual. We decide together. We always decide together. Of course, Picard said. Take the time you need. But Christopher, you should know, Daimon Tog's offer expires in 17 hours. And Gul Dukat has been very quiet, which concerns me. The Cardassians are planning something. They always planning something, Christopher said. Just like we always running from something. Maybe time to stop running. Maybe time to. He paused, searching for words the translator could properly convey. Maybe time to try standing still. Even if standing still is terrifying. As Christopher departed to return to the mothership, Riker moved beside Picard at the observation window. Do you think they'll accept Harkin's offer? I think, Picard said slowly, they're considering something they haven't allowed themselves to consider in 28 years, the possibility of a future. That alone is progress. And if the Federation doesn't follow through? If political pressure forces us to abandon them after they've committed? Then we will have failed catastrophically. Not just the Prawns, but ourselves. Every principle we claim to hold will be revealed as conditional. Every ideal we preach will be shown as empty rhetoric. No pressure then, Riker said dryly. Picard allowed himself a small smile. None whatsoever, number one. But the smile faded as Worf's voice came through his comm badge. Captain, we have a situation. The Cardassian fleet is moving. 3 warships breaking orbit and taking up positions around the mothership. They're not attacking, but they're boxing them in. Sir, if the Prawns tried to maneuver now, it would be interpreted as hostile action. Dukat is forcing a decision, Picard realized. Accept someone's offer or face Cardassian protection. He's removing the option to wait. Data's voice joined the comm. Captain, I am also detecting energy signatures from the unregistered vessels. They appear to be charging weapons. Recommendation, return to the Enterprise immediately. Picard and Riker moved as one, heading for the transporter room at a near run. Behind them, Governor Harkin's holographic image flickered. Captain, she called out, whatever happens, whatever the Prawns decide, I want you to know, Jurat IV's offer stands. We've been given a second chance after the Borg. It seems only right to offer the same to others. Your compassion does you credit, Governor, Picard replied. Let's hope it's not misplaced. As the transporter took them back to the Enterprise, Picard couldn't shake the image of Christopher standing at that observation window, looking at a world that might become home. The Prawn had spent 28 years looking at stars and seeing only destinations to flee from, never destinations to flee toward. Now, for the first time, there was a possibility of hope. The question was whether anyone would allow that hope to survive. The Cardassian blockade tightened like a noose over the next 6 hours. 3 warships became 5, then 7, their formation a masterwork of tactical positioning. Ghoul Dukat had transformed the space around the mothership into a cage without firing a single shot. On the Enterprise bridge, Picard watched the tactical display with growing frustration. Mr. Worf, analysis. The Cardassians have created overlapping firing solutions that cover every possible escape vector. If the mothership attempts to maneuver, at least 3 vessels will have clear targeting solutions within 0.4 seconds. Worf's tone carried grudging respect. It is expertly executed. And completely legal under current treaty provisions, Data added. They are maintaining position in open space, not Federation territory. They have issued no threats, made no aggressive moves. Technically, they are simply observing. With 7 warships, Riker said flatly. That's one hell of an observation post. The view screen shifted as Dukat's face appeared, his expression radiating false cordiality. Captain Picard. I trust you've noticed our enhanced security presence. Purely precautionary, I assure you. With so many vessels of questionable intent in the area, it seemed prudent to maintain order. Your concern for galactic peace is touching, Ghoul Dukat. I'm sure it has nothing to do with your interest in acquiring prawn labor. Labor? Dukat's eyebrow arched. Captain, you wound me. The Cardassian Union has no interest in forced labor. We leave such barbaric practices to less enlightened species. No, our interest is purely humanitarian. These poor creatures are dying, you said so yourself. Their ship is failing. Time is running out. We're simply offering an alternative should Federation bureaucracy prove too slow. An alternative that involves Cardassian custody. Protective custody, Dukat corrected smoothly. Temporary relocation to facilities where they can receive immediate medical attention while more permanent arrangements are negotiated. Really, Captain, you should be thanking us. We're providing a safety net your Federation seems unable or unwilling to extend. Picard's jaw tightened. The infuriating part was that Dukat's logic wasn't entirely wrong. The Federation's refugee resettlement process was notoriously bureaucratic, designed for careful deliberation rather than crisis response. Even with Governor Harkin's offer, there were protocols, inspections, resource allocation debates, processes that could take weeks or months. The Prawns had 48 hours before their life support failed completely. Captain, Troy said quietly, I'm sensing increased anxiety from the mothership. They're aware of the Cardassian presence. It's triggering traumatic responses. The blockade resembles containment tactics used against them before. Before Picard could respond, another vessel dropped out of warp, larger than the others, broadcasting Romulan transponder codes. The bridge crew tensed. Romulan involvement transformed an already complex situation into a potential powder keg. Identify that ship, Picard ordered. Romulan warbird, Degrading class, Worf reported, his tone grim. Commander Tomalak commanding. Sir, he's hailing us. Of course he is. On screen. Commander Tomalak appeared, his features sharp with Romulan cunning. Unlike Dukat's false charm or Tog's mercantile enthusiasm, Tomalak projected pure calculation. Captain Picard. How delightful to find you mediating another interstellar crisis. You do have a talent for positioning yourself at the center of chaos. Commander. I wasn't aware the Romulan Star Empire had interests in this sector. The Empire has interests everywhere, Captain. Surely you know that by now. Tomalak glanced at something off-screen. These prawns, fascinating beings. Our science directorate has been studying the sensor data. Their biotechnology alone would justify an entire research program. But it's their propulsion system that truly intrigues us. Data's hands moved across his console. Captain, I am detecting active scans from the Romulan vessel. Deep penetration analysis of the mothership's drive systems. Commander, Picard said sharply, you will cease scanning that vessel immediately. The prawns are under Federation protection. Are they? Tomalak's smile was predatory. How strange. I see no formal treaty. No asylum documentation. No official Federation recognition. What I see is a derelict vessel surrounded by interested parties, all of whom have equal claim to observation. The Romulans want the ship, Riker realized. Not the prawns, the ship itself. The mothership represents technology we've never encountered, Tomalak confirmed, not bothering to deny it. Biotechnology that repairs itself. Power generation through organic processes. A vessel that survived nearly 3 decades with minimal maintenance. Imagine what the Empire could accomplish with such capabilities. Geordi's voice came through from engineering. Captain, those Romulan scans aren't just passive. They're mapping the mothership's internal structure. If they're planning what I think they're planning, they intend to claim it as salvage, data finished. Under interstellar maritime law, a derelict vessel in neutral space can be claimed by any party willing to provide rescue assistance. If the prawns cannot demonstrate operational control, the mothership becomes eligible for salvage rights. And once the prawns are evacuated for humanitarian reasons, Picard said, understanding the trap, the ship becomes derelict by definition. Tomalak's smile widened. I see you grasp the situation, Captain. Really, we're all trying to help these unfortunate beings. The Cardassians offer shelter. The Ferengi offer employment. The Federation offers lengthy deliberation. And the Romulan Empire offers to relieve them of the burden of maintaining a vessel they can no longer control. Everyone wins. Except the prawns, Picard said coldly, who lose everything. They've already lost everything, Captain. We're simply helping them formalize that loss. It's kinder, really, than prolonging false hope. The transmission ended. Picard stood, pacing the bridge like a caged predator. Recommendations. We could extend our shields around the mothership, Worf suggested. Prevent further scans and make any salvage attempt impossible. That would be interpreted as an act of aggression, Riker countered. We'd be protecting a vessel without legal authority to do so. The Cardassians and Romulans would have grounds to claim we're violating treaty provisions. Then we need to establish legal authority, Crusher said, entering the bridge from her medical station. Captain, I've been reviewing Federation asylum law. There's a provision, Emergency Humanitarian Exemption, Article 7. If a population faces imminent extinction-level threat, the ranking Starfleet officer in the area can grant temporary protected status pending Council review. Data pulled up the relevant statute. Dr. Crusher is correct. However, the exemption requires proof of immediate existential threat. Hardship alone is insufficient. They're dying, Crusher said. The genetic degradation, the failing life support, if that's not existential threat, what is? It is a matter of interpretation, Data replied. The Cardassians could argue that their offer negates the threat. If rescue is available, the threat is no longer existential. Picard stopped pacing. What we need is time. Time for Governor Harkan to finalize resettlement preparations. Time for Starfleet Medical to assemble genetic therapy resources. Time for the Federation Council to... Captain, incoming transmission from the mothership, the communications officer interrupted. It's Christopher. Audio only, their visual systems are failing. Put him through. Christopher's voice, translated through the universal translator's mechanical filter, filled the bridge with static and clicking. Captain Picard. We have decided. We accept Governor Harkin's offer. We go to Jurat 4. Relief washed through the bridge, short-lived, as Christopher continued. But we have conditions. 1. Federation must guarantee our autonomy. We govern ourselves. No Federation administrators. No Starfleet oversight. We make our own laws, maintain our own security. 2. The mothership remains our property. Not salvage. Not Federation research vessel. Ours. 3. We receive full Federation citizenship, not provisional status. Equal rights. Equal representation. No second-class designation. Riker whistled softly. Those are significant demands. They're also completely reasonable, Troy said. They're asking for what any Federation member receives. Except they're not Federation members, Data pointed out. Membership requires council approval, which can take years. Christopher is requesting immediate membership benefits without following established procedures. Captain, Christopher's voice crackled, I know what we ask is difficult. Probably impossible. But we learn lesson from 28 years running, if you not demand respect, you never receive it. If you accept less than equality, you never achieve equality. We will not trade one subjugation for another, even if new subjugation were a friendly face. Picard understood completely. The Prawns had survived by maintaining their dignity in the face of systematic dehumanization, or depersonization, in their case. To surrender that dignity now, even for safety, would be a betrayal of everything they'd fought to preserve. Christopher, your conditions are noted. But I must be honest, granting immediate full citizenship without council approval may not be within my authority. Then we have problem, Captain. Because we not accept anything less. Better to die free than live as property, even well-treated property. The transmission cut to static. Picard looked at his senior staff, seeing his own frustration reflected in their faces. He's right, Crusher said quietly. We're asking them to trust us while simultaneously telling them they don't deserve full trust in return. We're asking them to accept provisional status, temporary protections, subject to review arrangements. We're treating them like charity cases rather than equals. We're following established law, Picard replied, but even he heard the weakness in the argument. Established law that's designed to prevent exactly this kind of crisis response, Geordi interjected. Captain, I get why the regulations exist, they prevent impulsive decisions, ensure proper integration, protect both sides from unforeseen problems. But sometimes regulations become obstacles to doing what's right. Worf straightened at his station. Captain, in Klingon culture, there is a concept, Q80, the moment of choosing. When honor demands action that violates law, a warrior must decide which code is supreme. The question is not what is legal, but what is honorable. This is Starfleet, Mr. Worf, not the Klingon Defense Force. We don't have the luxury of choosing between law and honor, we're sworn to uphold both. Even when they conflict? Worf challenged. Captain, you have taught me that sometimes following orders requires disobeying orders. You have shown me that rules exist to serve principles, not replace them. Now you face your own Q80. What do you choose? Picard looked out at the viewscreen, at the mothership surrounded by predators, at a species that had fought for 3 decades to maintain their dignity and freedom. He thought about the Federation's founding principles, infinite diversity and infinite combinations, the inherent worth of all sentient beings, the commitment to justice and equality. And he thought about Admiral Nechayev's warning, good intentions don't solve practical problems. Captain, Data said suddenly, I may have a solution. Federation law includes precedent for emergency citizenship grants. In 2322, Captain Rachel Garrett granted immediate citizenship to Klingon refugees fleeing civil war. The decision was challenged but ultimately upheld by the Federation Supreme Court on grounds that denying protection would have resulted in genocide. The Garrett precedent, Picard recalled. But that involved an established species with existing Federation relations. The prawns are completely unknown. Actually, sir, they're not. Geordi brought up a historical database. I've been cross-referencing the prawns' description of their homeworld invasion. Captain, I found something. 32 years ago, Earth received a distress signal from a colony ship called the MNU Covenant. The ship reported discovering an inhabited world with pre-warp technology and valuable mineral resources. They requested Federation support for a first contact and resource development mission. What happened? Riker asked. The Federation refused. Told them any contact would violate the Prime Directive. The Covenant ignored the directive, established illegal mining operations, and went dark. Starfleet lost track of them. Geordi's expression was grim. Captain, I think the Covenant was the invasion force Christopher described. I think the Federation knew about the prawns. Or at least knew humans were exploiting a pre-warp species, and did nothing. The bridge fell silent. The implication was devastating. The Federation bore partial responsibility for the prawns' persecution. Not directly, but through inaction. By failing to prevent human colonists from violating the Prime Directive, by losing contact with the Covenant and not following up, the Federation had allowed an atrocity to unfold. If this is true, Troy said slowly, it changes everything. The Federation has a moral obligation to rectify its failure. It also provides legal justification, Data added. Under Federation restitution protocols, species harmed by Federation citizens, even indirectly, are entitled to reparative support. Christopher's demands would qualify as minimum acceptable restitution. Picard felt the weight of decision settle on his shoulders. He could follow regulations, pass the decision up the chain of command, let the Council deliberate while the prawns died. Or he could act. Accept responsibility for the Federation's historical failure and grant the prawns what they deserved, recognition, citizenship, and dignity. Mr. Data, prepare a formal emergency citizenship declaration citing the Garrett precedent and restitution protocols. Mr. Worf, signal the mothership, inform Christopher his conditions are accepted, pending Council ratification. Dr. Crusher, coordinate with Governor Harkan on immediate resettlement logistics. Captain, Riker said quietly, Admiral Nechayev is going to have your command pins for this. Probably, Picard agreed. But Mr. Worf asked me what I choose, law or honor. I choose both. The law gives me the authority to act. Honor demands I use it. He turned to face his first officer. Number 1, send a priority message to Starfleet Command. Inform them that I am invoking emergency citizenship protocols on behalf of the prawn species. Include all relevant documentation, historical evidence, and justification. And make it clear, this is not a request for permission. This is notification of action already taken. Riker smiled slightly. Aye, Captain. This should be an interesting conversation. Captain, communications called out, the Cardassians are hailing. So are the Romulans. And the Ferengi. All simultaneously. I imagine they're somewhat displeased, Picard said dryly. On screen. All 3 feeds. The view screen split into thirds, showing Dukat's anger, Tomalak's cold fury, and Togg's sputtering indignation. This is outrageous. Togg screeched. You can't just declare them citizens. There are commercial agreements in negotiation. Potential contracts. Rule of Acquisition 239, never be afraid to mislabel a product. Wait, that's not the right one. Captain Picard, Dukat interrupted, his voice dangerously soft, you've just made a catastrophic political error. The Cardassian Union will file formal protest with the Federation Council. Your authorization will be challenged. And while bureaucrats debate, the prawns will remain in legal limbo, protected by nothing but your arrogance. Actually, Tomalak said with dark amusement, I suspect Captain Picard knows exactly what he's done. He's bet his career on the Federation Council lacking the courage to override his decision. He's calculated that public opinion will support protecting refugees over appeasing external powers. And he's banking on the fact that by the time anyone can reverse his declaration, the prawns will be safely settled on Jurat 4, making their removal politically impossible. Tomalak's smile was sharp as a blade. It's actually quite brilliant. Ruthless, legally questionable, and politically shrewd. Captain, I'm almost impressed. Almost. Your approval means the world to me, Commander, Picard said dryly. Now, unless any of you have legitimate business in this sector, I suggest you continue on your respective ways. The prawns are Federation citizens now. Interfering with them would constitute an act of aggression against the Federation itself. This isn't over, Picard, Dukat warned. On that, Ghoul Dukat, we actually agree. Picard gestured, and the transmission ended. The bridge crew looked at their captain with a mixture of awe and concern. What Picard had just done was either courageous leadership or career-ending insubordination. Possibly both. Captain's log, supplemental, Picard recorded. I have invoked emergency citizenship protocols on behalf of the prawn species, granting them immediate Federation protection and rights. Whether this decision is upheld by Starfleet Command and the Federation Council remains to be seen. But sometimes, the right action cannot wait for permission. Sometimes, principles must be defended before lawyers can debate their validity. History will judge whether I was right. But at least history will show I acted. He looked at his crew. Now, let's get those people home. The encrypted subspace message arrived from Starfleet Command 36 hours later, classified eyes only for Captain Picard. He read it in his ready room, the text filling him with a cold certainty that his gamble had attracted exactly the attention he'd hoped to avoid. Priority Alpha 1. Classification, Black. From, Starfleet Intelligence, Section 31. To, Captain Jean-Luc Picard, USS Enterprise NCC, 1701-D. Captain Picard. Your emergency citizenship declaration has created significant interest within certain circles of Starfleet intelligence. We commend your humanitarian instincts. However, your focus on refugee welfare has caused you to overlook a critical security consideration. The prawns possess biotechnology with profound military applications. Specifically, their mutagenic fluid, the substance you've documented as causing genetic degradation, has properties that make it invaluable for covert operations. Preliminary analysis suggests it could be adapted for biological warfare, genetic modification of operatives, or as a countermeasure against species like the Founders. With the Dominion War looming, we cannot allow such technology to remain in uncontrolled hands. An operative is en route to your position. You will cooperate fully and ensure samples of the mutagenic fluid are secured for analysis. This is not a request. For the security of the Federation. Agent Harris. Picard read it twice, then a third time, fury building with each pass. Section 31. The intelligence agency that officially didn't exist, that operated in shadows beyond Federation law, that justified any action, no matter how morally bankrupt, in the name of security. He'd encountered them before. Always to his regret. Computer, locate Commander Riker. Commander Riker is in the transporter room with Dr. Crusher and Lieutenant Commander LaForge. Picard stood quickly, the PADD still in hand. He found his officers in heated discussion with a stranger. A human male in civilian clothes, mid-40s, with the bland features and forgettable appearance that screamed intelligence operative. Captain Picard, the man said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Agent Harris, Starfleet Intelligence. I believe you received my message. I received it. I'm ignoring it. Harris's smile widened slightly. I don't think you understand. This isn't a debate, Captain. Section 31 has authorization. Section 31 has no authorization on my ship, Picard cut him off. You're an illegal organization operating outside Federation law. You have no authority here. Actually, Harris pulled out a PADD of his own. We have quite a bit of authority. Executive Order 24, signed by the Federation Security Council. In times of imminent threat, such as, say, potential Dominion invasion, intelligence agencies are granted broad latitude to secure assets vital to Federation security. The prawn biotechnology qualifies. Riker stepped between them, his body language protective. Even if that order is legitimate, it doesn't give you the right to exploit refugees. I'm not exploiting anyone, Commander. I'm protecting the Federation. Harris looked genuinely puzzled by their resistance. The prawn's mutagenic fluid could be adapted into a weapon against the Founders. Imagine, a substance that could force changelings into solid form, make them vulnerable. It could end the Dominion threat before the war even begins. Or it could create something worse, Crusher said sharply. That fluid is unstable, mutagenic, barely understood. Weaponizing it could create a biological catastrophe. You could unleash something that makes the Founders look benign by comparison. That's why we need to study it. Under controlled conditions. With proper safeguards. Harris turned back to Picard. Captain, I understand your ethical concerns. I respect them, truly. But we're facing an existential threat. The Dominion has already made incursions into the Alpha Quadrant. When the war comes, and it will come, we'll need every advantage. Can you really justify withholding a potential weapon that could save billions of lives? It was the eternal dilemma, security versus principle. The trolley problem writ large. If you could prevent catastrophe by compromising your values, were you obligated to do so? Or did compromising those values create an even greater catastrophe? The prawns are Federation citizens now, Picard said carefully. Their biotechnology is their property. You cannot seize it without their consent. Then get their consent. Convince them it's in everyone's best interest. Harris's tone remained pleasant, but something harder lurked beneath. Or I'll be forced to obtain samples through other means. I'd prefer cooperation, Captain. It's cleaner. But I will accomplish my mission, one way or another. Geordi's combadge chirped before anyone could respond. LaForge to transporter room. We've got a problem. Someone's trying to access the mothership's command systems remotely. It's sophisticated, looks like a Starfleet security protocol, but modified. Harris had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. That would be my technical team. They're attempting to access the Prawns' biological database. With the ship's systems failing, I thought it prudent to preserve the data before it's lost. You're stealing their technology, Riker said flatly. I'm preserving it. There's a difference. Not to the prawns, there isn't. Picard tapped his combadge. Picard to Worf. Security alert. We have unauthorized access attempts on the mothership. Block all remote connections and post security teams at critical access points. Nobody enters or leaves without my direct authorization. Aye, Captain. Harris sighed, the pleasant facade cracking slightly. Captain, you're making this unnecessarily difficult. I have clearance from people I don't answer to, Picard interrupted. Section 31 may believe itself above Federation law, but on this ship, I am the law. You will cease all operations immediately, or I will have you confined to quarters and removed from the Enterprise at the earliest opportunity. You can't do that. I have a starship, Mr. Harris. And at the moment, that trumps your authorizations. Picard's voice carried command weight that made even Harris step back. You will accompany Commander Riker to guest quarters. You will remain there until we reach Juret 4. And if I detect any further interference with the prawns or their technology, I will charge you with espionage and hand you over to Starfleet JAG. Are we clear? Harris studied Picard for a long moment, then smiled, genuinely this time, with something like respect. Crystal clear, Captain. Though I should warn you, others in Section 31 are less patient than I am. I'm what you might call the diplomatic option. If I fail, they'll send someone less conversational. Then I suggest you report that diplomacy didn't work. Perhaps your superiors will take the hint. After Riker escorted Harris away, Crusher moved beside Picard. He's not wrong about the war. The Dominion is coming. We all know it. And if the Prawns' biotechnology could help, then the Prawns can choose to share it, Picard said firmly. On their terms. Not because they were coerced, manipulated, or had it stolen. Dr. Crusher, the moment we justify taking what we want because we're the good guys, we become indistinguishable from the Cardassians who want to exploit them or the Ferengi who want to buy them. I know. Crusher looked troubled. I just wonder how many people will die because we chose principle over pragmatism. And I wonder how many people will die if we abandon our principles entirely, Picard replied. The Federation is built on the idea that means matter as much as ends. Compromise that, and we're not worth defending. Geordi's voice came through the comm again, urgent now. Captain, I need you to see something. The mothership's biological systems, they're not just failing, they're being sabotaged. Someone's introducing a virus into their organic technology. It's accelerating the decay. Picard and Crusher rushed to the bridge, where Data had brought up analysis of the mothership's deteriorating systems. The patterns were unmistakable, this wasn't natural degradation. Someone was actively destroying the ship. When did this start? Picard demanded. Approximately 43 minutes ago, Data reported. Shortly after Agent Harris arrived. Section 31, Riker said grimly, having returned from escorting Harris. They can't steal the technology if the Prawns are using it. But if the ship fails catastrophically, forcing immediate evacuation, the mothership becomes abandoned salvage, Picard finished. And Section 31 can claim it without legal complications. Captain, the Prawns are detecting the sabotage, Troy reported, her empathic senses clearly overwhelmed. I'm sensing panic, rage, desperation. They think we betrayed them. They think this is the Enterprise's doing. Open a channel to Christopher. Now. The view screen flickered, showing the mothership's command center in chaos. Prawns rushed between failing systems, their clicking and chittering creating a cacophony of distress. Christopher appeared, his compound eyes reflecting emergency lighting. You promised. The translator carried every nuance of betrayal and fury. You promised protection. You promised citizenship. And now you destroy our home. You murder our ship. This is Federation honor. Christopher, listen to me, this is not the Enterprise. We did not do this. There are forces within Starfleet, rogue elements, who are acting against my orders. Rogue elements? You mean you cannot control your own people? What good is Federation citizenship if Federation cannot even police itself? Christopher's mandibles clicked rapid fire. We were fools. Again, we were fools. Humans all the same. Different words, same betrayal. We're stopping it, Picard insisted. Mr. LaForge is isolating the virus. We can contain the damage. Too late. Life support fails in 3 hours. Command systems already dying. Ship is dying. Christopher moved closer to the screen, and Picard saw exhaustion beyond measure in those alien features. You want to know worst part, Captain? We actually hoped. For first time in 28 years, we hoped. We imagined future. Children growing up on planet with sky. Learning something besides survival. Becoming something besides refugees. His antennae drooped. Hope was mistake. Hope is always mistake. The transmission cut out as another system failed. Captain, Data said quietly, I have traced the virus to its source. It originated from Agent Harris's personal equipment. However, the sophistication suggests it was preloaded and automatically deployed. Harris may not have even been aware he was carrying it. A failsafe, Picard realized. Section 31 knew I might refuse cooperation. The virus was insurance, destroy the ship, force evacuation, claim the salvage. It's diabolical, Crusher said. And effective. Captain, we need to evacuate the prawns now. They have hours at most. To where? The Enterprise can't hold 2 million beings. And if we scatter them across the fleet, assuming we could assemble enough ships in time, we lose any chance of keeping them together as a unified population. Worf spoke up from tactical. Captain, Governor Harkan is hailing. She says Juret 4 can accelerate the resettlement timeline. They have transporter capacity to begin moving prawns immediately. It will require multiple ships creating a transport chain, but it's possible. How long to evacuate everyone? 73 hours at maximum transport capacity, Data calculated. However, the mothership's life support will fail in 3 hours. Then we need to extend those 3 hours, Picard said. Mr. LaForge, can we transfer emergency power to the mothership? Stabilize their critical systems? Maybe. But Captain, their technology is biological. Our power systems aren't compatible. It would be like trying to jumpstart a living organism with electricity, you'd probably just kill it faster. Then what about their own systems? Crusher asked suddenly. The mutagenic fluid, it powers their biotechnology. If we could replicate it, provide fresh supplies. Doctor, that fluid is what's killing them. In chronic low doses, yes. But in concentrated form, used as fuel rather than ambient exposure, it might stabilize their systems long enough for evacuation. Crusher pulled up her medical data. I've been studying the fluid's properties. It's essentially liquid stem cells, incredibly adaptive, capable of interfacing with almost any biological system. If we could synthesize even a small amount. We'd need the molecular formula, Geordi interrupted. Which means we'd need samples. Which means asking the prawns to give us the very thing Section 31 is trying to steal. The irony was not lost on anyone. To save the prawns, they needed to ask for exactly what the prawns believed they'd been betrayed to obtain. I'll talk to Christopher, Picard said. If I can convince him we're not working with Section 31. Captain, Worf interrupted, I'm detecting multiple vessels approaching. 4 ships, heavily armed, broadcasting no identification. They're on intercept course with the mothership. More Section 31. Unknown. But they're moving to firing positions. Worf's hands moved across tactical. Captain, those ships are charging weapons. They're preparing to attack the mothership. Picard's mind raced through possibilities. If Section 31 couldn't steal the technology intact, they might settle for ensuring no one else could have it. Or worse, if the prawns died with the ship, there would be no one to contest salvage claims later. Red alert. Shields up. Position the Enterprise between those ships and the mothership. Mr. Worf, target their weapons systems. Do not fire unless fired upon, but make it clear we will defend. Captain, Data said, analyzing the approaching ships, those vessels are using transponder codes associated with independent contractors. Mercenaries. Someone has hired them to do Section 31's dirty work. Plausible deniability, Riker said bitterly. If this goes wrong, Section 31 can claim they had nothing to do with it. Just random mercenaries attacking a refugee ship. The 4 mercenary vessels took up positions, their weapons locked on the mothership. The Enterprise stood between them, 1 ship against 4, protecting a dying vessel full of beings who no longer trusted their protectors. Picard opened a channel to the mercenary ships. Attention, unidentified vessels. The mothership and its inhabitants are under Federation protection. Any attack will be considered an act of war. The response came from a gravel-voiced human who'd clearly spent too much time in harsh environments. That's mighty noble of you, Captain. But we've got a contract. Nothing personal. Just business. You want to walk away, no one gets hurt. You want to play hero, well, that's on you. I'm not walking away. Figured you'd say that. Shame. I actually like the Enterprise. Seems wrong to damage her over some bugs. A pause. Last chance, Captain. Stand down or we open fire. Picard looked at his crew. Riker's jaw set in determination, Worf's hands ready at tactical, Data's fingers poised over navigation, Troy's eyes reflecting the emotional weight of the moment. They were ready. They were always ready. But ready to die for beings who thought they'd been betrayed? For a principle that Section 31 had already corrupted? For refugees who had every reason to hate humans? Mr. Worf, Picard said quietly, fire a warning shot across their bow. Let's see how committed they are to their contract. The Enterprise's phasers lanced out, brilliant orange energy slicing across the lead mercenary ship's path. The mercenaries held position for a moment, then. All 4 ships opened fire simultaneously. The Enterprise shuddered as disruptor fire hammered against her shields. Picard gripped his armrest, watching the tactical display as 4 mercenary vessels coordinated their assault with disturbing precision. Shields holding at 87%, Worf reported, returning fire. His phaser barrage struck the lead mercenary ship, scoring its hull but failing to penetrate. They have reinforced shielding. Military grade, not typical mercenary equipment. Meaning Section 31 provided them with more than just a contract, Riker said grimly. Another volley rocked the Enterprise. Picard saw the cold mathematics of the situation, 1 ship against 4, protecting a stationary target, unable to maneuver aggressively without leaving the mothership exposed. The mercenaries understood this too, they spread out, forcing the Enterprise to divide her fire, slowly wearing down her shields through coordinated assault. Captain, the mothership is launching something, Data announced. Multiple objects, approximately 3 meters in length. They appear to be, he paused, his positronic brain processing the impossible. Captain, they are prawn soldiers. In space suits. Armed with their bioweapons. The view screen showed them, dozens, then hundreds of prawns in crude environmental suits, propelling themselves through space with what looked like compressed gas thrusters. They moved with insectoid efficiency, swarming toward the mercenary ships like an army of armored hornets. They're attacking, Troy breathed. Despite everything, despite believing we betrayed them, they're fighting to defend themselves. The prawns reached the nearest mercenary vessel and attached themselves to its hull. Their bioweapons fired at point-blank range, beams of energy that didn't explode or burn but seemed to simply unmake matter. Hull plating disappeared, exposing internal systems. Atmosphere vented in silent geysers. Remarkable, Data observed. Their weapons are more effective in vacuum than in atmosphere. No air resistance, no thermal dissipation. The molecular destabilization effect is amplified. The mercenary ship listed, power failing as the Prawns systematically destroyed its critical systems. But the victory was costly. Return fire from the other 3 ships cut through the prawn soldiers, their fragile suits rupturing, bodies tumbling lifeless into the void. They're dying, Crusher said, her voice tight. Captain, they're sacrificing themselves to buy time. Then we don't waste that time. Mr. Worf, concentrate fire on the damaged vessel. Take it out of the fight. Mr. LaForge, reroute all available power to forward shields. The Enterprise's phaser arrays blazed, exploiting the damage the prawns had inflicted. The mercenary ship's shields collapsed, and subsequent hits struck home. Secondary explosions rippled across its hull. The vessel broke off, limping away from the battle. 3 ships remained, but they'd learned. They maneuvered to keep the mothership in their line of fire, forcing the Enterprise to choose, protect the prawns or protect herself. Picard chose. He always chose. Mr. Data, position us directly between the mothership and those vessels. Full impulse. Captain, that will expose our ventral shields to concentrated fire. I'm aware, Commander. Do it. The Enterprise surged forward, her massive bulk interposing between the mercenaries and their target. Disruptor fire hammered her underside, shields flaring with each impact. Warning klaxons wailed as systems strained. Ventral shields at 40%, Worf reported. 30. 25. Engineering to bridge, Geordi's voice crackled through interference. Captain, we're losing power conduits on decks 12 through 16. If those shields collapse, we'll have hull breaches across the entire ventral section. How long can we maintain current position? Maybe 5 minutes before shields fail completely. 5 minutes. Picard's mind raced through options, discarding each as quickly as it formed. They were outgunned, outmaneuvered, and running out of time. The prawns continued their desperate assault, more soldiers launching from the mothership, but their numbers were dwindling. For every mercenary system they destroyed, 3 prawns died. It was mathematics written in blood and vacuum. Captain, Data said suddenly, I am detecting a warp signature. Single vessel, approaching at high warp. Configuration matches, a Klingon bird of prey. Klingon. Riker looked up sharply. Who? The bird of prey decloaked directly above the mercenary formation, weapons already firing. Disruptor cannons tore into the nearest mercenary ship while photon torpedoes hammered its shields. The attack was sudden, brutal, and devastatingly effective. A gravelly Klingon voice filled the comm channel. Enterprise, this is Captain Ken of the IKS Hegta. It seems you require assistance. Again. Captain Ken, Picard said, relief flooding through him despite the irregularity of Klingon intervention. Your timing is impeccable. My timing is strategic, Picard. Chancellor Gowron learned of your situation from his intelligence sources. He believes the Prawns' warrior spirit deserves respect. Also, he finds Section 31's actions dishonorable. The Chancellor has authorized me to clarify the situation. The Hegta's assault was merciless. Klingon ships might lack the Enterprise's sophisticated systems, but they excelled at one thing, violence. The bird of prey's cloaking device allowed it to strike from multiple angles, appearing and disappearing, keeping the mercenaries off balance. One mercenary ship, its shields overwhelmed, attempted to flee. Ken pursued, his ship's weapons painting space with emerald fire until the mercenary vessel's warp drive failed and it drifted, powerless. The final 2 mercenary ships broke off, retreating at maximum impulse. Shall I pursue, Captain? Ken asked, eagerness evident in his tone. Negative, Captain Ken. Let them go. They've learned their lesson. A pity. They fought poorly. Hardly worth the honor of combat. Ken's face appeared on screen, scarred and fierce. Still, it was satisfying to bloody Section 31's nose. Even if only through their hired PDQ. The battlefield fell quiet, littered with debris and bodies, mostly prawn bodies. Picard watched as the survivors retrieved their dead, moving through the void with movements that spoke of ritual and grief. Captain, Crusher said softly, we need to retrieve those prawns. Medical teams to the transporter rooms. Belay that order, Doctor. Picard watched the prawns continuing their grim work. They're recovering their own. We respect that. But prepare trauma teams. I suspect they'll accept medical aid once their dead are accounted for. Captain, incoming transmission from the mothership, communications reported. It's Christopher. The screen showed Christopher in what remained of his command center. Behind him, Prawns worked frantically at failing systems, but their efforts were futile. The ship was dying faster now, accelerated by battle damage. You fought for us, Christopher said, his translator rendering something close to wonder. You took fire. You risked your ship. Why? Because I gave you my word. And despite what Section 31 tried to do, despite the betrayals and complications, that word still means something. Christopher's antennae moved in patterns Picard was beginning to understand, confusion mixed with something like cautious hope. Section 31. These the rogues you mention? Yes. A shadow organization that believes security justifies any action. They wanted your biotechnology. When I refused, they attempted to take it by force. And you stopped them. I tried. With Captain Kin's assistance, yes. Picard leaned forward. Christopher, I need you to understand something. The Federation is not perfect. We have factions that operate outside our ideals, individuals who corrupt our principles. But those factions do not represent us. I do not represent them. The question is whether you can see the difference. Christopher was silent for a long moment. Around him, his people worked, their movements carrying the weight of exhaustion and loss. You know what I see, Captain Picard? Christopher finally said. I see human who keeps promises even when inconvenient. I see crew who risks themselves for beings they barely know. I see Klingon who arrives just to honor warrior spirit of strangers. His mandibles clicked softly. I see maybe, just maybe, galaxy has room for honor. Small room. Crowded room. But room. Then let us help you. Dr. Crusher believes she can synthesize fuel for your life support systems, but she needs the molecular formula for your mutagenic fluid. I know what I'm asking, it's the same thing Section 31 tried to steal. But Christopher, without it, your ship dies in less than 3 hours. We won't take it. We're asking you to trust us one more time. The silence stretched. Picard could almost feel his crew holding their breath. If we give you formula, Christopher said slowly, what stops Section 31 from obtaining it later? From your records, your databases. Nothing, Picard admitted. If they want it badly enough, they'll eventually get it. I can't promise otherwise. Honesty. Again with honesty. Christopher's antennae twitched. Most humans we meet lie constantly. Tell us what we want to hear. You tell us truth even when truth is uncomfortable. This is unusual. It's called respect, Christopher. You deserve to know what you're risking. Then I risk it. I give you formula. I trust you not to weaponize it. I trust Federation ideals you speak of, even though I know they are fragile, easily corrupted, often compromised. Christopher moved closer to his screen. But Captain, I also ask something in return. Something more than citizenship, more than planet, more than protection. Name it. I ask you remember us. When we are settled on Jurat 4, when we are just another species in Federation, when we are no longer crisis requiring heroes, remember us. Remember we are people, not exotic specimens. Remember we have culture, dreams, fears, hopes. Remember we are not insects. Not monsters. Not prawns. We are people who survived impossible things to reach this moment. Christopher's voice carried a weight that transcended translation. Do not let us become invisible. Do not let us become statistic. Do not let Galaxy forget we existed before you found us, and we will exist long after you stop paying attention. Picard felt the words settle in his chest like stones. How many species had the Federation encountered, helped, catalogued, then forgotten? How many beings existed on the margins of Federation consciousness, acknowledged but not truly seen? You have my word, Christopher. The Federation will not forget you. I will not forget you. Then I send formula now. Dr. Crusher will have what she needs. Data confirmed receipt moments later. Captain, I have the molecular structure. It is extraordinarily complex. Replicating it will require significant computational resources. How long? 93 minutes to synthesize sufficient quantities for the mothership's needs. Make it happen. Mr. Worf, maintain defensive posture. I don't trust that we've seen the last of Section 31's interference. Captain Ken, will you remain in the area? The Klingon's laugh was harsh. Do you think I traveled this far just to leave before the story concludes? I want to see how this ends, Picard. Besides, my ship needs minor repairs from the battle. Convenient excuse to linger, yes. Your continued presence is appreciated. Over the next 90 minutes, the Enterprise's replicators worked at maximum capacity, synthesizing the mutagenic fluid. Dr. Crusher personally supervised the process, her medical expertise ensuring the replication was exact. The formula was indeed complex, a substance that existed at the intersection of biology and technology, organic yet engineered. It's beautiful, in a way, Crusher said, watching the synthesis process. Like liquid DNA. Programmable matter. No wonder Section 31 wanted it. Will it work? Picard asked. It should. But Captain, I need to warn you about something. This fluid. I've run projections. If Section 31 does acquire it, if they weaponize it, the consequences could be catastrophic. We might be handing them the means to commit atrocities in the name of security. I know. But the alternative is letting the prawns die to prevent a hypothetical future crime. I won't do that, Doctor. I refuse to sacrifice real lives to prevent imaginary ones. Even if those imaginary lives become real later. Even then. We can't live in fear of what might be. We can only do what's right now and trust that our principles will guide us through whatever comes. The synthesized fluid was transported to the mothership in specialized containment vessels. Prawn engineers received it with something approaching reverence, carefully integrating it into their ship's biological systems. The effect was immediate, bioluminescent pulses strengthened, organic technology stabilized, life support readings improved. It's working, Geordi reported from his station. The mothership's systems are regenerating. Captain, I'm reading life support extending to 73 hours. Exactly enough time to complete the evacuation. Picard allowed himself a moment of relief. They had time. Not much, but enough. Captain Picard. Christopher's voice came through the comm, carrying less exhaustion than before. The fluid works. Our ship lives, temporarily. Our people will survive. You have done what you promised. You have proven different. This is good. Strange, but good. Then let's begin the evacuation. Governor Harkan is standing by. Jewett 4 is ready to receive you. One more thing, Captain. Christopher paused. The soldiers who died in battle. We have tradition. Ritual. We need to, he struggled with the translation. We need to give them to the stars. Return them to space. It is our way. Of course. We'll provide any assistance you require. What followed was one of the most moving ceremonies Picard had ever witnessed. The prawns brought their dead to the mothership's exterior. 347 warriors who had died defending their people. They arranged the bodies in precise geometric patterns, then spoke in their clicking, chittering language, words the universal translator couldn't fully capture but whose meaning was clear: honor, sacrifice, remembrance. Then, with ritual precision, they released the bodies into space, where they would drift forever among the stars. Picard stood on the Enterprise bridge, watching, and thought about Christopher's request. "Remember us." He would. They all would. "Captain," Troy said softly, "I'm sensing something from the prawns. It's subtle, but it's there. Relief, yes. Gratitude, certainly. But also, something like pride. They fought. They survived. They proved themselves not as victims but as warriors. That matters to them." "As it should," Worf said with rare approval. "They have earned honor through combat. Their dead died with purpose. This is the Klingon way. It's the way of any people who refuse to surrender their dignity," Picard said. "No matter how desperate their circumstances." The evacuation began in earnest, a carefully choreographed operation involving the Enterprise, the Hegta, and a dozen transport vessels assembled by Governor Harkan. Streams of prawns transported down to Jurat 4, where colonists waited to receive them with preparations both practical and symbolic. Housing, food, medical care, but also translators, cultural liaisons, and most importantly, genuine welcome. It would take 72 hours to move 2 million beings. 72 hours during which anything could go wrong. But as the first wave of prawns materialized on their new homeworld, as they experienced solid ground and open sky for the first time in 28 years, Picard allowed himself to believe it might actually work. The Federation's principles, battered and compromised as they were, still meant something. Sometimes, that was enough. The crisis came on hour 68 of the evacuation, when 400,000 prawns remained aboard the dying mothership and patience finally ran out in the halls of Federation power. Admiral Nechayev's face filled the view screen, her expression carved from ice. Behind her stood three figures Picard recognized, Federation counselors from Earth, Andoria, and Tellar Prime. This wasn't a status update. This was a tribunal. "Captain Picard," Nechayev began without preamble, "the Federation Council has reviewed your actions over the past 72 hours. Emergency Citizenship Declaration. Engagement with mercenary forces. Unauthorized use of Starfleet resources for refugee resettlement. The list is extensive. Admiral, the evacuation is nearly complete. In 4 hours, all prawns will be safely relocated to Jurat 4. Surely the Council can wait." "The Council has waited long enough," Counselor Janner of Andoria interrupted, his antennae rigid with displeasure. "Captain, you invoked emergency protocols meant for extreme circumstances. Protocols that bypass normal oversight specifically because they're not meant to be used lightly. You've set a precedent that any Starfleet captain can grant citizenship, commit resources, and engage in military action based solely on their personal judgment. With respect, Counselor, that's precisely what those protocols are designed for. Situations where bureaucratic delay costs lives. Or situations where ambitious officers can play God," Counselor Tnell of Vulcan said, her tone coldly logical. "Captain, your actions were driven by emotional response to perceived injustice rather than rational analysis of Federation interests. The prawns represent significant resource commitment, potential security risks, and political complications. None of which you adequately considered." Picard felt his temper rising but kept his voice level. "I considered all of those factors, Counselor. I simply concluded that our moral obligations outweighed our convenience." "Moral obligations," Counselor Rodriguez of Earth repeated, his expression sour. "Captain, I've received communications from 17 Federation colonies expressing concern about the prawn resettlement. They're worried about security, about resource allocation, about, let's be honest, about how the prawns look. I have colonists threatening to secede if the Federation continues importing alien threats. Your moral obligations have created a political firestorm. Then perhaps those colonists need to be reminded what the Federation stands for," Picard replied sharply. "We don't abandon sentient beings because they're inconvenient. We don't let them die because saving them is politically complicated. If we've reached the point where xenophobic colonists dictate Federation policy, then we've lost our way entirely. Captain, Nechayev interjected before the argument could escalate, the Council isn't ordering you to stop the evacuation. The Prawns can finish relocating to Jurat 4. But effective immediately, your emergency citizenship declaration is revoked. The Prawns will have provisional refugee status pending full Council review, a process that could take months or years. During that time, they'll be subject to oversight, restrictions on movement, and limited access to Federation resources. The words hit like physical blows. Picard had promised the Prawns full citizenship, autonomy, dignity. Now the Council was reducing them to monitored refugees, subject to the same bureaucratic prison that had kept them wandering for 28 years. You're making them second-class residents, Picard said quietly. Exactly what I promised them they wouldn't be. We're following proper procedure, Tnell corrected. Something you failed to do. Captain, your intentions were admirable. Your methods were reckless. The Council must correct your overreach. Captain Picard. A new voice joined the transmission, elderly, carrying weight of authority that made even the counselor straighten. Ambassador Sarek of Vulcan materialized on screen, his aged features composed but eyes sharp as ever. I have been monitoring this situation with interest. May I speak? Of course, Ambassador, Nechayev said, though her tone suggested she'd have preferred otherwise. The Council's concerns are logical, Sarek began. Captain Picard did circumvent normal channels. He did commit significant resources without authorization. He did establish precedent that could be abused by less principled officers. He paused, letting the admission settle. However, the Council's proposed solution is not logical. It is political cowardice dressed as procedural necessity. Councillor Janner's antennae quivered with indignation. Ambassador Sarek, with respect. Hear me out, Councillor. Sarek's voice carried the weight of decades serving the Federation. I have studied the prawn situation extensively. They fled persecution from humans, not Federation humans, but humans nonetheless. They spent 28 years being rejected, exploited, and treated as less than people. Captain Picard offered them something unprecedented, genuine acceptance. And now, the Council wishes to reduce that acceptance to provisional tolerance. What message does this send? That Federation principles apply only when convenient. That our promises are negotiable based on political pressure. That beings can be provisionally sentient pending bureaucratic review. Tnell spoke up. Ambassador, the Prawns case requires careful evaluation. Their biotechnology, their appearance, their integration challenges. Their humanity, Sarek interrupted, then corrected himself. Forgive me. Their personhood. Counselor, I am Vulcan. My species was nearly destroyed by our own violent impulses before we learned logic. We rebuilt ourselves from the edge of extinction. We know what it means to be judged as dangerous, as alien, as incompatible with civilized society. The Romulans, our own genetic relatives, still bear that stigma. He leaned forward slightly, a gesture that commanded attention. If the Federation had existed when Vulcans first sought alliance, and if that Federation had offered us provisional refugee status while debating whether we were truly worthy of acceptance, we would have rejected it. Dignity cannot be provisional. Personhood cannot be pending. Either the prawns are people, or they are not. There is no logical middle ground. The counselors exchanged glances. Rodriguez spoke first. Ambassador, we understand your position. But the practical realities. The practical reality, Sarek cut him off, is that you face a choice. Uphold Captain Picard's declaration and accept the political consequences, or revoke it and admit the Federation's principles are subject to popular opinion. Choose the former, and you may lose some votes. Choose the latter, and you lose the moral foundation upon which this Federation was built. You're asking us to commit political suicide, Rodriguez said flatly. I am asking you to govern with courage rather than consensus. Sarek's tone softened slightly. Counselors, I am old. I have served the Federation for over a century. I have watched us face countless crises, war, plague, internal division. We have survived because, at critical moments, leaders chose principle over popularity. This is such a moment. Silence filled the channel. Picard watched the counselors grappling with Sarek's challenge, saw the calculations behind their eyes. Political careers balanced against moral imperatives. Opinion polls weighed against historical legacy. Finally, Nechayev spoke. Ambassador Sarek's arguments have merit. However, the Council requires time to deliberate. Captain Picard, continue the evacuation. The citizenship question will be resolved within 30 days. 30 days during which the Prawns exist in legal limbo, Picard said. Unable to plan their futures. Unable to fully integrate. Living with uncertainty. 30 days is better than immediate revocation, Nechayev replied. Take the compromise, Captain. Picard wanted to argue, to demand immediate resolution, to insist the Prawns deserved better. But he also understood political reality. Nechayev was offering him a window, narrow and fragile, but real. 30 days to demonstrate the Prawns could integrate successfully. 30 days to change hearts and minds. 30 days to prove the cynics wrong. Understood, Admiral. Enterprise out. The transmission ended, leaving Picard alone with his thoughts. Through the ready room window, he watched the evacuation continue, streams of light as transporters moved Prawns from dying ship to new home. For more hours. Then it would be done. Except it wouldn't be done. Christopher's words echoed. Do not let us become invisible. The door chimed. Come. Guinan entered, carrying 2 drinks. She placed one before Picard without asking, then settled into the chair across from him. The Elorian had a knack for appearing exactly when needed. You did good, Captain. Did I? The Council is preparing to revoke everything I promised. The Prawns will spend a month wondering if they'll be deported. Governor Harkan will face resistance from colonists. And Section 31 is still out there, waiting for another opportunity to steal Prawn technology. You gave 2 million beings 4 more hours of life, Guinan said simply. 4 hours they wouldn't have had without you. Sometimes that's all we can do, buy more time and hope others use it wisely. It's not enough. It never is. But Captain, you're thinking too small. You're focused on immediate outcomes, council votes, political compromises, 30-day deadlines. But change doesn't happen in 30 days. It happens in moments like these, when someone stands up and says, this is wrong, and I won't accept it. You planted a seed. Now it has to grow. Picard sipped the drink, synthahol, strong, with a bite that matched his mood. And if the Council revokes the citizenship? If they reduce the Prawns to permanent refugees? Then you plant another seed. And another. Until eventually, one takes root. Guinan's ancient eyes held his. I've lived a long time, Captain. Long enough to see empires rise and fall, to watch species evolve and devolve. The Federation is young, barely 2 centuries old. It's still learning what it wants to be. Sometimes it learns by failing. Sometimes by succeeding. But it always learns from people like you who refuse to accept easy answers. The Prawns need more than philosophical lessons, Guinan. They need protection, resources, certainty. They need time. Which you've given them. She stood, preparing to leave. For more hours, Captain. A lot can happen in 4 hours. She was right, though not in the way either expected. 3 hours into the final evacuation phase, sensors detected a massive subspace distortion, similar to the one that had deposited the mothership in Federation space, but larger, more controlled. A wormhole was opening, stabilized by technology far beyond anything the Federation possessed. Captain to bridge. Picard arrived to find his crew studying the phenomenon with a mixture of scientific fascination and tactical concern. The wormhole pulsed with azure energy, its mouth wide enough to accommodate vessels 10 times the Enterprise's size. Analysis, Mr. Data. The wormhole is artificially generated and maintained, Captain. The energy signatures match those we detected from the mothership's propulsion systems, but amplified by several orders of magnitude. Someone is opening a gateway. From where? Unknown. The wormhole appears to connect to a region of space not in our stellar cartography databases. Possibly extragalactic. A ship emerged. No, not a ship. A fleet. Dozens of vessels, each resembling the mothership but larger, more advanced, undamaged. Their hulls gleamed with bioluminescent patterns, organic technology functioning at peak efficiency. And aboard them, sensors detected millions of life signs. All prawn. Christopher's voice crackled through the comm, carrying an emotion the translator rendered as shock, but might have been something far more profound. Captain Picard. They came. After 28 years, they came. Our people. From homeworld. They came. The lead vessel broadcast a message, translated through frequencies the universal translator struggled with. This is Elder Sovereign of the Prawn Homeworld Recovery Fleet. We detected the mothership's emergency beacon 28 years ago. We have been searching for you ever since. We have crossed galaxies to find you. You are not alone. You were never alone. Picard felt the bottom drop from his assumptions. The prawns weren't just refugees from a conquered world. They were the advance guard, or the lost children, of a civilization that had rebuilt, had reclaimed their homeworld, had developed technology sophisticated enough to pursue their lost people across galactic distances. Captain, Data said quietly, I am detecting weapons systems on those vessels. Energy signatures that make the mothership's bioweapons appear primitive by comparison. If these prawns are hostile. They're not hostile, Christopher said, hearing the concern. They are family. My people. Our people. The Elder Sovereign's vessel approached, dwarfing the Enterprise and the dying mothership. Its presence transformed the situation entirely. The prawns weren't helpless refugees anymore. They were representatives of a power the Federation had never encountered. Captain Picard of the United Federation of Planets, the Elder Sovereign spoke, its voice carrying weight of authority. We have monitored transmissions. We know what you have done for our lost people. We know the promises you made, the battles you fought, the principles you defended. We are grateful. This is not common word for us. But it is accurate. Your people are remarkable, Elder Sovereign. They survived 28 years through courage and determination. Any aid we provided was simply meeting our moral obligations. Moral obligations. The Elder Sovereign's tone shifted, becoming harder. We also know of those who sought to exploit our people. This section 31. These mercenaries. The Cardassians who would enslave. The Ferengi who would purchase. These are not forgotten. A chill ran through the bridge. The Elder Sovereign wasn't making threats, exactly. But the implication was clear, the prawns remembered who had helped and who had tried to harm them. Elder Sovereign, Picard said carefully, the Federation seeks peaceful relations with all species. What happened here was complex. There were those who acted dishonorably, but they do not represent our values. So Christopher has told us. He speaks highly of you, Captain Picard. Of your Klingon ally. Of the humans on Jurat 4 who offered sanctuary. This is noted. Remembered. Honored. The wormhole began to pulse more intensely. We have come to retrieve our lost people. Those who wish to return to homeworld may do so. Those who wish to remain on your Juret 4 may do so. We force no one. Choice is fundamental right. Christopher appeared on screen, speaking to his people on the mothership and those already on Juret 4. What followed was a debate conducted in rapid clicking and chittering, families deciding, individuals weighing options, a population splitting based on personal choice. In the end, 60% chose to return home. 40%, 800,000 prawns, chose to remain on Juret 4, to build new lives in Federation space. Why? Picard asked Christopher quietly. You've waited 28 years to go home. Why stay? Christopher's antennae moved in complex patterns. Because home is not just planet, Captain. Home is place where you choose to be. Place where you are accepted as you are. For 28 years, we wander looking for place that does not reject us. We find it in strange place, planet full of traumatized humans, protected by human captain who keeps impossible promises. He clicked something that might have been laughter. Besides, if we all leave, who will remind Federation of its principles? Who will be the uncomfortable presence that forces self-examination? Who will make sure you do not forget? The evacuation continued, but now with a different tenor. Those returning home boarded the recovery fleet vessels with joy and relief. Those remaining on Juret 4 did so with determination and hope. And the Elder Sovereign made one final pronouncement. Captain Picard. The prawns who remain in Federation space are under our protection. Harm them, and you harm us. Exploit them, and you make enemies of a civilization that crossed galaxies to find its lost children. But honor them, support them, accept them, and you gain allies who do not forget debts. It was diplomacy and threat wrapped together, delivered with absolute clarity. As the recovery fleet prepared to depart, taking the mothership with them for honorable decommissioning, Picard found himself on the bridge watching history unfold. The Federation had encountered a new power, not through exploration or conflict, but through simple act of doing what was right. Captain, Riker said quietly, the Council is going to have opinions about this. Let them, Picard replied. The prawns are Federation citizens now, not because bureaucrats decided, but because we proved the Federation's principles mean something. 800,000 living witnesses that we practice what we preach. The wormhole collapsed, taking the recovery fleet home. The prawns remaining on Juret 4 began the complex work of building new civilization. And the Enterprise, having defended principles at the cost of comfort, set course for the next crisis. Because there would always be a next crisis. Always beings who needed defending. Always principles that required courage to uphold. And as long as ships like the Enterprise sailed the stars, those principles would have defenders. 6 months later, Captain Picard stood in what had become known as the integration district of Juret IV's primary settlement. The architectural evolution was remarkable, human structures modified with organic technology, prawn hive clusters rising alongside traditional buildings, a hybrid cityscape that reflected genuine synthesis rather than mere coexistence. Christopher approached with a gait that no longer looked quite so alien to Picard's eyes. Familiarity, the captain had learned, was the antidote to instinctive fear. The prawn leader wore what might have been ceremonial markings, bioluminescent patterns painted across his carapace in designs that held cultural significance Picard was still learning to interpret. Captain Picard. Welcome to New Confluence. Christopher gestured with multiple limbs at the settlement around them. Name chosen by vote. Humans suggest New Hope. We suggest Survival Point. Compromise reached. Democracy is exhausting. Picard smiled. Democracy usually is. But it's worth the exhaustion. They walked through streets where human children played alongside young prawns, the latter's exoskeleton still soft, coloring bright with youth. 6 months ago, such a scene would have been unthinkable. Now it was simply Thursday afternoon. Governor Harkin tells me integration is progressing well, Picard observed. Better than projected. Better than hoped, Christopher corrected. Not without problems. Last month, 3 human families requested relocation. Could not adapt to living near insects. We not blame them. Fear is honest. It is hatred pretending to be reason that we fight. And the genetic degradation treatments? 93% success rate. Dr. Crusher's protocols working. Children born here show no degradation. For first time in 30 years, we have future that extends beyond single generation. Christopher's antennae moved in what Picard recognized as gratitude. You save us, Captain. Not from death. We survived death for decades. You save us from becoming extinct slowly, forgotten gradually, disappearing quietly. They reached the settlement's central plaza, where a monument stood, a sculpture combining human and prawn artistic sensibilities. Carved names covered its surface, the 347 prawns who had died defending the mothership, but also the names of Jurat 4 colonists lost to the Borg. Shared trauma memorialized together. We dedicate this next week, Christopher explained. Both species attend. Both species remember. Both species acknowledge that survival requires sacrifice, and sacrifice deserves honor. Picard studied the monument, thinking about the long journey from first contact to this moment. The battles fought, the principles defended, the countless small choices that had led to this unlikely synthesis. Christopher, I need to tell you something. The Federation Council voted 3 weeks ago on your citizenship status. Christopher's body stiffened, antennae rigid. And full citizenship. Unanimous approval. Not provisional, not conditional. Full rights, full representation, full autonomy. The prawns are Federation members now. The reaction was subtle. A trembling of limbs, a shifting of posture, a pattern of clicks that the universal translator labeled as profound relief. Christopher was silent for a long moment. I not know what to say. For 28 years, we speak many words, pleas, arguments, desperate offers. Now, at moment of achieving what we seek, words fail. You don't need words, Christopher. You've already said everything necessary through your actions. What changed? Christopher asked. 6 months ago, council debates. Counselors resist. Political complications everywhere. What changed their minds? Picard smiled slightly. You did. Or rather, your people did. When the Elder Sovereign arrived with that fleet, the Council realized the prawns weren't helpless refugees to be managed. You're representatives of a civilization powerful enough to cross galaxies, technologically advanced enough to create stable artificial wormholes, and determined enough to search for lost people across 30 years. Suddenly, accepting you wasn't charity, it was pragmatic foreign policy. Ah! Christopher's mandibles moved in bitter amusement. So we are accepted because we are strong, not because we are worthy. Partially, Picard admitted. But not entirely. Your people's successful integration here changed minds too. The teachers who work with human and prawn children together. The engineers collaborating on hybrid architecture. The medical researchers sharing genetic therapy protocols. The farmers learning prawn agricultural techniques. Every day, your people prove that different doesn't mean incompatible. Still, Christopher said, you are saying fear of consequences motivated acceptance more than belief in principles. I'm saying both played roles. Christopher, I wish I could tell you the Federation accepted you purely from moral conviction. But political entities are complicated, motivated by mixtures of idealism and pragmatism. What matters is the outcome, your citizens now. What motivated that outcome is less important than what you do with it. They continued walking, passing a school where prawn and human students learned Federation standard and prawn linguistic patterns side by side. A human teacher was demonstrating Earth history while a prawn instructor explained the biotechnology that had saved the mothership for 28 years. Synthesis in action. "There is something I must tell you," Christopher said as they reached the settlement's edge, where new construction pushed outward into Jurat IV's wilderness. The elder sovereign made offer before departing. "Any prawns who remain in Federation can request return to homeworld at any time. Transport will be provided. No questions asked. No judgment rendered. That's generous. Have many accepted?" 47 individuals. Mostly elders who wish to die on homeworld. We not stop them. Choice is fundamental right. Christopher paused at a construction site where prawns and humans worked together, raising a structure that defied easy categorization, part building, part living organism. "But Captain, I must also tell you, Section 31 has not given up." Picard's expression hardened. "What have they done?" "Nothing. Yet. But we detect surveillance. Monitoring. Subtle scans of our biotechnology. They wait for opportunity. They always wait." Christopher turned to face Picard directly. "We prepare defenses. Share some technology with Federation science, but not all. Keep reserves in case we need to protect ourselves. This is pragmatic, yes. This is sensible," Picard agreed. "Though I hope it never becomes necessary." "Hope is dangerous, Captain. You teach me this. But also, hope is necessary. We balance both. We hope for best while preparing for worst. Very Federation approach, I think." They were interrupted by Governor Harkan, approaching with a human child and young prawn in tow. The child, maybe 7 years old, was chattering excitedly while the prawn juvenile clicked responses, both clearly comfortable with each other. "Captain Picard, Christopher, allow me to introduce Emma Harkan, my granddaughter, and Zikthar, her, well, I suppose, friend, is the right word, though they insist they're academic colleagues. We're doing a research project," Emma announced, "on how prawn biotechnology could help restore damaged ecosystems. Zikthar knows so much about biological systems, and I know about Earth ecology, so we're combining expertise." Zikthar clicked something the translator rendered as Emma very enthusiastic. Sometimes exhausting. But partnership is productive. We hypothesize that prawn organic engineering can accelerate forest regrowth in Borg-damaged areas. Harkan smiled. They're entered in the Federation Youth Science Competition. I suspect they'll do quite well. Picard watched the two young beings, so different in physiology, so similar in enthusiasm, and saw the future. Not a future free of complications or challenges, but one where those complications were navigated through cooperation rather than conflict. "Governor, how is the colony adapting overall?" "Better than I dared hope, Captain. We've had our share of problems, cultural misunderstandings, a few incidents of prejudice, ongoing debates about resource allocation. But we're building something here. Something that hasn't existed before. A truly integrated society where humans and prawns aren't just coexisting but actively collaborating. The agricultural yields have increased 40% since prawn engineers redesigned our irrigation systems," Harkan continued. "Our medical facilities are now treating conditions we couldn't handle before, thanks to prawn biotechnology insights. And perhaps most importantly, we've stopped being a colony of trauma survivors and started being a colony of builders. Helping the prawns helped us heal." Christopher clicked softly. "Mutual benefit. Federation concept. Works better than we expect." As Emma and Zikthar ran off to continue their research, Picard reflected on the irony. The prawns had spent 28 years searching for a home, and in finding one, they'd helped a broken human colony rediscover its purpose. "Captain," Harkan said quietly, "I want you to know, when the council was debating prawn citizenship, I testified. Told them everything we'd accomplished here. Told them the prawns aren't just refugees we're helping, but partners who are helping us. I think that made a difference. I'm sure it did, Governor. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank Christopher and his people for taking a chance on us. We're just a colony world, relatively isolated, still recovering from Borg attack. They could have chosen any of hundreds of more prosperous, more established worlds. But they chose us because we offered something those other worlds couldn't, genuine acceptance born from shared trauma. Picard's combadge chirped. Enterprise to Captain Picard. Sir, Admiral Nechayev is requesting real-time communication. Priority 1. Patch her through. Nechayev's face appeared on Picard's combadge display, her expression unreadable. Captain, I wanted to inform you personally, your actions regarding the prawns have been officially commended by Starfleet Command. The citation mentions, exemplary diplomatic initiative under complex circumstances and upholding Federation principles despite significant political pressure. Picard allowed himself a slight smile. I'm surprised, Admiral. 6 months ago, you told me I'd made a catastrophic political error. You did. But it was an error that happened to be correct. Nechayev's expression softened fractionally. Picard, I spent 3 decades in Starfleet learning that pragmatism and principle are often in conflict. You reminded me that sometimes they're actually aligned. The prawn integration has been successful beyond projections. You took a gamble, and it paid off. It wasn't a gamble, Admiral. It was doing what was right and trusting that outcomes would follow. Same thing, different terminology. Nechayev paused. There's something else. The Elder Sovereign has proposed a formal alliance between the Federation and the Prawn Homeworld Consortium. They're offering technology sharing, mutual defense arrangements, and cultural exchange programs. The Federation Council is discussing terms now. That's unexpected. That's strategic. The prawns recognize that the Federation kept its promises when doing so was difficult. They're willing to formalize that relationship. Captain, your humanitarian crisis has evolved into a significant foreign policy opportunity. Try not to look too smug about it. I'll do my best, Admiral. After the transmission ended, Christopher clicked what might have been laughter. You look smug anyway. Very human trait. I prefer to think of it as satisfaction at seeing principles vindicated. Same thing, different terminology, Christopher echoed Nechayev's words. Captain, I have question. Personal question. You risk much for us. Career, reputation, ship, crew. You could have walked away many times. Why you not? Picard was silent for a moment, choosing his words carefully. 20 years ago, I was assimilated by the Borg. Stripped of individuality, turned into a weapon against everything I believed in. When I was rescued, when I was restored, I had to reconstruct my sense of self. I had to remember what it meant to be Jean-Luc Picard, to be human, to be Starfleet. And I realized, identity isn't just who you are. It's also what you refuse to become. I refuse to be someone who abandons sentient beings because helping them is inconvenient. I refuse to be a Starfleet officer who follows orders blindly when those orders conflict with fundamental decency. I refuse to be part of a federation that only extends its principles to beings who look acceptable or politically viable. Christopher's antennae moved in complex patterns. So you help us to define yourself. To prove you are who you believe you are. Partially. But also because it was the right thing to do. Sometimes those motivations align. They stood together watching new confluence as day shifted into evening. The settlement's lights came on, both technological and biological, human electrical systems and prawn bioluminescence creating a hybrid glow that was beautiful precisely because it couldn't be categorized as purely one or the other. Captain Picard, Christopher said finally, when we first meet, I say hope is dangerous. Hope kills. I still believe this is true. But I also learn, lack of hope kills more certainly. You give us hope when we have none left. Not empty hope, hope with action. Hope with sacrifice. Hope with truth. 28 years we search for home. We find it in strange place, with strange allies, through strange circumstances. But we find it. This is enough. This is more than enough. This is, he paused, searching for the right word in a language not his own. This is miracle. Small miracle. Complicated miracle. But miracle nonetheless. Picard placed a hand on Christopher's carapace, a gesture that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago, but now felt natural. The miracle isn't that you found a home, Christopher. The miracle is that you never stopped looking. That's the real lesson here: persistence, determination, refusal to surrender to despair. Those are the qualities that saved your people, not anything the Federation did. Federation provided opportunity. We provide determination. Together, we create something new. This is synthesis. This is how civilizations grow. As Picard prepared to beam back to the Enterprise, Christopher made one final request: Captain, when you write official report about us, when you document this in Federation records, I ask one thing. Do not make us special case. Do not make us exceptional story. Make us example. Make us proof that Federation principles work when tested. Make us evidence that different species can build together. Make us normal, not remarkable. Because if we are remarkable, we are anomaly. If we are normal, we are precedent. And precedent changes everything. Picard understood completely. Christopher didn't want the Prawns to be celebrated as an unusual success story. He wanted them to be the first of many, proof that the Federation's diversity could extend even to beings who challenged every human instinct about what people should look like. I'll make sure the record reflects exactly that, Christopher. You have my word. Your word. I learned to trust that. Even when trust is difficult. Even when experience suggests trust is foolish. I trust anyway. This is what you teach me: sometimes wisdom is knowing when to ignore experience. Back aboard the Enterprise, Picard recorded his final log entry on the Prawn integration. Captain's log, stardate 47899.2. The Prawn resettlement on Juret 4 has exceeded all projections. What began as humanitarian crisis has evolved into genuine partnership. 800,000 Prawns are now Federation citizens, fully integrated and actively contributing to colony development. The Federation Council has granted full citizenship rights, and diplomatic relations with the Prawn Homeworld Consortium are being formalized. But perhaps more significant than these official outcomes is what the Prawn integration demonstrates about the Federation itself. We are tested constantly. By circumstances, by politics, by our own limitations. Sometimes we fail those tests. Sometimes we compromise our principles for convenience. But sometimes, when it matters most, we remember who we aspire to be and act accordingly. The Prawns are no longer refugees. They are colleagues, neighbors, friends. They have found home not because we granted them charity, but because we extended them dignity. And in doing so, we have reminded ourselves what the Federation stands for. Not the principle that all beings who look like us deserve respect, but the principle that all sentient beings deserve respect regardless of appearance, origin, or circumstances. If we can remember that lesson, if we can apply it not just to the Prawns but to every species we encounter, then perhaps we truly are worthy of the ideals we claim to represent. The Enterprise is departing Juret 4, but the story of the Prawns continues. And that continuation is the most important part. Not the rescue, but what comes after. Not the crisis, but the building. Not the promise, but the keeping of promises. End log. As the Enterprise pulled away from Juret 4, Picard stood at his ready room window watching the planet recede. Below, in New Confluence, human and Prawn citizens continued their lives, working, learning, building, arguing, collaborating, existing together in all the messy complexity that actual integration required. It wasn't perfect. It never would be. But it was real. And sometimes, Picard reflected, real was better than perfect anyway. The stars beckoned, and the Enterprise answered, heading toward whatever crisis awaited next. But this time, they carried with them proof that the Federation's principles weren't just beautiful words. They were achievable realities when someone had the courage to fight for them. Christopher had asked to be remembered. The Federation would remember. And more importantly, it would learn. That was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything. 3 years after the Prawns' arrival in Federation space, Captain Jean-Luc Picard received an unexpected message. The transmission originated from Jurat 4, but the sender surprised him, Emma Harkan, now a precocious 10-year-old attending the colony's integrated academy. The message was simple: Captain Picard, you need to see what we've built. Please come back. When the Enterprise returned to Jurat 4, Picard materialized in a location that hadn't existed during his last visit. A massive research facility at the settlement's edge, where organic prawn architecture merged seamlessly with Federation technology. The building itself seemed alive, its walls pulsing with bioluminescence while holographic displays showed complex scientific data. Emma and Zikthar, now an adolescent prawn with darkening carapace indicating approaching maturity, waited at the entrance. They'd grown, both physically and intellectually, their partnership having evolved into something the Federation Science Council was calling unprecedented interspecies collaboration. Captain. Emma bounced with characteristic enthusiasm. We did it. We actually did it. Did what, precisely? Picard asked, though he suspected the answer would be remarkable. Zikthar clicked, the translator rendering his pride clearly: we have synthesized stable mutagenic fluid. Modified version that provides prawn biotechnology benefits without genetic degradation side effects. We have also created hybrid technology, Federation computational systems integrated with prawn biological processors. Result is processing power that exceeds anything Federation currently possesses. They're being modest, Governor Harkin said, joining them. Captain, what these two have accomplished is revolutionary. Starfleet Corps of Engineers is already requesting detailed specifications. Medical facilities across the Federation want to implement their genetic therapy improvements. And the Daystrom Institute has offered them both full scholarships, though they're only 10 and the equivalent age respectively. Christopher appeared from within the facility, moving with confidence in a space designed for both prawn and human physiology. Captain Picard. Welcome. You see what becomes possible when different species truly collaborate rather than merely coexist. This facility is proof: diversity is not obstacle to overcome. It is advantage to exploit. Picard toured the research center, marveling at innovations that emerged from combining human analytical thinking with prawn biotechnology intuition. Medical treatments, engineering solutions, scientific breakthroughs, all flowing from genuine synthesis rather than one species adapting another's technology. But what moved him most was something simpler. Watching Emma and Zikthar argue good-naturedly about experimental methodology, their different ways of thinking creating solutions neither could achieve alone. They weren't human and prawn collaborating despite their differences. They were partners whose differences made them stronger together. You asked me to remember you, Picard said to Christopher as they stood watching the young researchers work. To ensure the Federation didn't forget. But Christopher, you've made forgetting impossible. The prawns aren't a footnote in Federation history, you're actively writing that history alongside us. Christopher's antennae moved in patterns Picard had learned to recognize as contentment. We remember too, Captain. We remember human who kept promises when easier to break them. We remember Klingon who honored warrior spirit of strangers. We remember colony that offered home when no one else would. We remember that sometimes, despite all evidence to contrary, principles are stronger than prejudice. As the Enterprise departed Juret 4 once more, Picard reflected on the journey from first contact to this moment. The Prawns had arrived as refugees, desperate, traumatized, expecting betrayal. They had found instead something rare in the galaxy, genuine acceptance, earned through mutual respect rather than granted as charity. But more significantly, the Prawns had transformed the Federation's understanding of itself. Every integrated school, every hybrid research facility, every prawn serving in Starfleet or on the Federation Council, every human and prawn raising families together. All served as living proof that the Federation's principles weren't aspirational rhetoric but achievable reality. The cynics had been wrong. The pragmatists who argued that appearance mattered, that some species were too different, that integration was impossible, all proven incorrect by beings who refused to accept impossibility as answer. Section 31 had never fully abandoned their interest in prawn biotechnology, but they'd learned a crucial lesson. Some prizes aren't worth the cost of obtaining them. The prawns had become too integrated, too valued, too connected to Federation society to be exploited without triggering consequences no shadow organization could weather. The Dominion War would come, as wars inevitably did. The prawns would fight alongside the Federation, not as clients or subordinates, but as equal partners. Their biotechnology would save countless lives, their warriors would earn honor in battle, and their persistence would remind war-weary citizens why they fought. But that was future history. For now, the prawns had simply come home. 28 years of wandering had ended not with discovery of perfect world, but with creation of imperfect synthesis. Not with finding beings who didn't judge by appearance, but with changing beings who did. Not with locating paradise, but with building it piece by piece, compromise by compromise, day by day. Christopher's final words to Picard during that visit echoed long after, "You asked why we stay when we could return to Homeworld." Answer is simple. Homeworld is where we were born. Juret 4 is where we chose to live. Home is not place you come from. Home is place that accepts you as you are, challenges you to become more, and stands beside you when standing is difficult. Federation gave us that. We will not forget. We will ensure Federation never forgets what it is capable of being. The Enterprise sailed on through space, carrying with it the proof that the Federation's founding principle, infinite diversity in infinite combinations, wasn't just possible. It was inevitable whenever beings chose courage over comfort, principle over prejudice, hope over cynicism. The prawns had survived impossible odds, crossed impossible distances, and overcome impossible prejudices. They had transformed from persecuted refugees into valued citizens, from victims into partners, from beings defined by trauma into people defined by possibility. And in doing so, they had proven something the Federation desperately needed to remember, that its principles, tested under fire, could survive. That its ideals, challenged by reality, could prevail. That its promise of dignity for all sentient beings wasn't empty rhetoric but achievable truth. Christopher had asked not to be forgotten. The Federation would remember. Not as curiosity or cautionary tale, but as evidence of what became possible when principles guided action, when promises were kept despite cost, when beings looked past appearance to see person beneath. The galaxy was vast, filled with species yet unknown, challenges yet unmet, principles yet untested. But somewhere on Juret 4, human and prawn children studied together, learned together, built together. Living proof that difference was strength, diversity was advantage, and the Federation's ideals were worth defending. That was the Prawns' legacy, not that they were saved, but that in being saved, they reminded the Federation what it was capable of being. That was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything. Live long and prosper. More stories await.